All right. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Dr. David Patrick Carey with Church of the Eternal Logos. And today we are going to be diving into an Orthodox perspective on spiritual warfare. So obviously, everybody is still talking about the latest atrocities that have occurred here in the United States. And really just within the last, month and a half, we have the Annunciation Catholic school being shot up by a transgender shooter, of which the 12-year-old Orthodox girl who was in there is apparently she's recovering and she's in a much better condition now than she previously was in critical condition. We have the stabbing of Irina Zarutska in the Charlotte public bus by a madman who is clearly demonically possessed, and we're going to be looking at that. And then we've seen now Charlie Kirk last week was assassinated at Utah Valley University. And as though today's conversation, we're not going to be focusing too much on the specific details of these instances. I think the occurrence and the frequency of these things and the severity and what they represent is really an important opportunity to talk about what demonic possession is. The spiritual warfare that we're currently under. It's, people have been talking about Ephesians 6:12 and how we wrestle not with flesh, but with spirits of the air. But what does that really mean? And how does that affect you and me? And what does that mean for the people that we engage with in contemporary American society? And so the goal today is I'm going to be presenting essentially a thesis that America as a nation is already currently possessed. Now, does that mean that the devil is operating America like a puppet on a string? Not necessarily. There's free will involved here. But I'm going to be talking about what personal, like individual demonic possession looks like and how that occurs. I'm going to lay that out from an Orthodox perspective. And really, the point is to demonstrate to everybody watching is that you and I are just as susceptible to demonic possession as anybody else. Clearly, what we're witnessing with the activism or perceived activism upon by the trans community and the terror that they're invoking, the immense rise in crime in the cities of the United States, and the deliberate attacking of Christians. For part of today's preparation, I actually began to try to dive into the history of school shootings, particularly Christian schools, and the shooting of churches in the United States. And what was very interesting is really these phenomenon, although there's instances before the year 2000, it's after the year 2000 that these become incredibly prevalent. And so the point is for everybody to understand that spiritual warfare absolutely is real. And this is happening to all of us. Now, anybody out there watching who may be Orthodox Christian or Christian of some persuasion, you may be dealing with temptations, passions, anything that we, normal people typically struggle with. And I want to encourage you guys to continue the battle, because as we talk about demonic possession, the concept you've heard me speak about before, but I'm going to introduce it, assuming somebody may be watching this stream who's not Orthodox or not familiar with Orthodox theology. And so to begin a conversation on spiritual demonic possession and spiritual warfare, we have to understand what the battlefields are. And first and foremost, it's the imagination. I have a whole section in my document today as a study guide overview, whether it be Evagrius Ponticus, St. John Cassian, St. Maximus the Confessor. They talk about how the logismi, these tempestuous, pernicious images that invade the mind. You could be driving on the highway. I have a video of Father Paul Trubenbach today talking about what demonic possession and spiritual warfare looks like. And you may be in the car with your children, and all of a sudden you get this strange image to pull into oncoming traffic and kill everybody. Where are these thoughts coming from? Well, they're clearly not from God, and often they're not even from you. It's not even some psychological reverberation of previous intentions or emotions or thoughts. We believe that these are actually signs of demonic activity. And most people don't think about that. And certainly within Catholicism and Protestantism, that specificity on where we need to focus our attention regarding spiritual possession sort of goes unenumerated. And so the point is that all the thoughts we're having, and this is going to connect with, because I also have, once we lay out what the logismy and the spiritual temptation, I actually wrote down what I consider the 7 physical battlefields of our spiritual warfare currently in America. And you could correspond. I mean, this conversation today is going to be specifically focused on America, but it'd be very easy to extrapolate to Western civilization as a whole. But the process of possession begins with these images, what we would consider as logismy or suggestions from the demons. And they enter your mind. And it could be, for example, if you're struggling with pornography, it could be pornographic images. It could be sexual lust. It could be vengeance and anger against somebody who maybe caused trauma to you. Anything that will get you into an emotional state that would allow you to be possessed by your passions. And this leads to then what the fathers call the dialogue or the conversation, in which we entertain these thoughts. So maybe you are struggling with lust and you get the urge to watch pornography, and the images enter your mind. And instead of dissuading them, instead of returning back to the Jesus prayer or thinking of something pure, you kind of think about it. You indulge yourself in the tempestuous thought, and all of a sudden it begins to stimulate the body. It begins to stimulate your emotions and your passions. And this is the conversation. This is you conversing with these demonic entities in a way that most people are not fully conscious of. And then eventually you give consent. You approve the thought, and it moves towards action then. And so from the thought just being entertaining, now you're going to actually perform the action. And this is what leads then to captivity. And that because it went from the logismy to the conversation, to the consent, to the action, now it becomes a full-blown passion. And once you're there, the repeated indulgence begins to crystallize into a potential habit in which a demon then actually has maybe control of you, but maybe in a specific way. And so when we're talking about demonic possession, even though I'm going to show you clips of the movie Nefarious here to sort of begin the conversation and open the stream, we have to remember that possession is an incremental thing. It doesn't just happen at one point. And so when we're talking about the homosexual Tyler Robinson that killed Charlie Kirk, assassinated Charlie Kirk, of course, he had a boyfriend. He's living with another delusional man who's in prelest, who's in a state of confusion, who has a disordered mental state, who thinks he's going to transition to a woman. And we're going to talk about how trans ideology and transgenderism is explicitly satanic. But of course, these people have already given themselves over. So just to think about what I just laid out in regards to spiritual possession, look at what happens to Charlie Kirk, this Tyler Robinson guy. Maybe he has the thought, oh, what would it be like to kill Charlie Kirk? Because Charlie Kirk said something that violated my fifis on trans or homosexuality or some type of political issue. And then the thought emerges, well, what if I did shoot him? And then he entertains it. He converses with it. And then he says, wow, that'd be actually something I'd like to do. Then he consents to it. And then he goes and commits the action. And this is exactly what the demons are trying to get us all to do. And so when we're looking at Irina Zarutska on the bus in Charlotte, when I watched the video, I said that man is possessed by a demon, because she goes and sits down. She doesn't engage with the man. She doesn't tempt the man or evoke the man in any way. He sees that she's a white woman with blonde hair. He pulls out a blade and he immediately stabs her. And I'm going to show you guys today the video of him actually talking about how it wasn't him. He doesn't know why he would kill her. There was nothing that she did, but the voices within him, they wanted her dead, is what he said over and over again. That is a man who has consented. It could have been drug addiction, could have been sexual fetishes, could have been lying, could have been any various sins that we commit, but he had capitulated to them to such a degree that the spectrum of possession becomes stronger and stronger and stronger. And my argument is that we living in America, if you're a Christian in the United States today, you are living amongst a large swath of our population that is demonically possessed. And what do you do about that? How do you engage in culture? How do you go engage in American contemporary society? Because one of the things we're going to be getting into is all these people that celebrated and encouraged and even encourages further violence. We saw Destiny was on Piers Morgan with Andrew Wilson and Jack Posobiec yesterday, in which he would not condemn the killing of Charlie Kirk. Now, I don't care about Destiny. He's a midwit. He's a degen. But what this represents and the prevalence of young people celebrating the death is, again, this process of possession in which they're slowly losing the image of God within themselves. And the inability to grasp the sensitivity of this issue, whether anybody agreed with anything, it's irrelevant. It's a moot point, whether you agreed with Charlie or not. The point that I'm making is that the people that are insensitive to it, this is already a very visceral and obvious sign of demonic possession within these people. And just by believing lies, we can become possessed by demons. If you live in a alternate reality where the world that you're perceiving and engaging in is dictated by an official narrative through media and news agencies, you are not an autonomous person. This is how we get the NPC. And what I would argue is that the NPC is the demonic possession, that everybody's then running off the same script of their sexual fetishes, of falling into narratives, the social justice, the idea that they can, I'm such a good person because I love trans rights. You know, just today, I think it's ABC News, after the recent press conference regarding Tyler Robinson and the charges, and that Utah is going to be seeking the death penalty. One of the ABC reporters, because supposedly the FBI and local authorities have this piece of this letter, this conversation, these text messages between Tyler and his boyfriend. And he's calling his boyfriend, his transgender, delusional boyfriend, my love, my love. And ABC News, instead of saying, oh, wow, this was premeditated, this was planned, this was clearly deliberate, this man's not insane, he took actions to cover up the steps that he took. If he was insane, he would have just done a mass shooting, right? So he can't appeal to insanity. But what's ABC News do? Oh, wow, this letter, it really humanizes Tyler, and it really warms your heart to see the way he talks with his trans lover. This is demonic. And I would argue that America as a nation, explicitly since the 1960s, is a nation possessed by demonic influence. And I would highlight multiple areas in which that is true. Now, in my study guide for today's stream, and though I'm not going to belabor the point, is that when we're talking about demonic, the devil's America, which is what I titled today's stream, we're talking about an America that really comes into emergence post 1960s counterculture. And you're thinking, what? But Patrick, we're Orthodox. America is an Enlightenment project. The founding fathers were deists. The Puritans were, in a sense, dispensationalists, or, all these different. Fair enough. Yes. But as a cultural ethos, again, America is a Protestant nation. Even to my, even though I take umbrage with that as an Orthodox Christian, and maybe would wish that it was an Orthodox nation, but it is historically a Protestant nation. The transferal and the transformation of the power centers from a Protestant WASP Christianity, despite whatever you think of that, to essentially an inversion, a demonic possession, an inversion of Christianity, this social justice, this progressive ethos, this anti-life death cult, that is a process just like possession, which is incremental. The choices we make are incremental. The same thing is true with America. And this incremental process, essentially since the 60s to the present day, has led us to a point in which we are in a nation that the institutions and the power structures are themselves demonically inspired. And I would point to the first one being abortion. We did a whole stream 2 weeks ago on the history of Baal and Moloch worship. And I would argue, if you watch that stream, the takeaway is you cannot, from a Christian perspective, negate the association and the sympathetic connections between Moloch worship and child sacrifice in the ancient period, be it Baal or Moloch. We covered it all through the Canaanites and Carthage and all these different places. That this is continued. This is still active in the present state of abortion. America is one of the largest nations that commits abortions, every year. I mean, how many is it? Isn't it like over 100 million babies have been killed in the United States through abortion? You don't think that allows a sense of demonic inspiration and influence to insert itself within the structures of our society and the people who participate? It absolutely does. What about the military-industrial complex? How do you think God feels about the endless wars and the economic mechanism of our nation that is killing innocent people? And it's been doing it for a long time. Again, going back, I mean, where do you want to draw the line? It could be debated, but certainly an easy one is the Vietnam War, the Gulf of Tonkin, false flags, false narrative, lies by the federal government, getting us into further wars. What for? To make money, to sell weapons, take people's lives, practice new engineering techniques for death. What do you think that does to the soul of a nation, a soul of a people? When we're contemplating the loss of identity as Americans, part of it is that we don't have any moral high ground to stand on. Now, obviously, there's conversations about how much influence we actually have in the U.S. government, whether voting, at least on the federal level, makes any difference. And you could make a very strong argument that voting on the federal level doesn't make a whole lot of difference. We are seeing some things emerge with the Trump administration. I would say one of the most positive is actually what RFK is doing in the food. But look at our food. Look at America's food. Look at the things that are supposed to give you nutrition. It's all poison. Look at America. Everything is poison. The food, the entertainment, the news, the water. Who inspires that? The devil. This is spiritual warfare. And the fact that the U.S. can't get out of the military-industrial complex cycle of killing people around the world, this is an injustice that's going to accrue on our nation. Hollywood, degeneracy. I saw that Alex Stein was trying to educate Tim Pool on the origins of Hollywood, meaning the holly tree that the Druids would use for magic wands. Of course, that was reiterated in the Harry Potter series because Harry Potter's magic wand is that of the holly tree. And so Hollywood is a magic wand. Okay, that stuff comes from like Jordan Maxwell, all these people that are into, the sort of open files of the alt history community. And I got my own problems with Jordan Maxwell, but there is something there regarding Hollywood. But to take that metaphor or analogy further, Hollywood as a magic wand, what does it do? Well, it's going to be one of the institutions that I argue is the battlefield, because what this is doing is actually catechizing the masses, right? We can talk about indoctrination in regards to education, K through 12, universities, academia. But how does the masses learn and value and engage in culture? Well, it's probably through film in the 21st century, or at least media. Maybe at the end of the 20th century is film. Film's kind of dying now because, again, the inability to actually create something of value and worth that people want to watch, which is another sign of spiritual sickness. So Hollywood and degeneracy has essentially catechized an entire generation into the normalization of ugliness, of violence, of hate, of sexual immorality. What do you think that does? That's another sign of demonic possession. Just as an individual, if an individual was to do all those things, they would become possessed. And this is normalized in our nation. Transgenderism. I mean, it's now explicit. Transgenderism is a mental illness. Transgenderism is satanic. Transgenderism is a satanic destruction of the body. You're getting these young girls that have mastectomies. They're cutting off their breasts. One of the unique features of females is that when they have children, they actually lactate and can give life and nourish a baby through their breasts. They're cutting them off. What does that signify? It signifies women actually divorcing themselves from any prospect of being a normal woman. The castration. They're castrating boys, the male seed, the source that actually fertilizes an egg and gives life. They're castrating the boys. The loss of male identity. What's the difference between a castrated man and a woman with a mastectomy? Is that one has another hole that the other one doesn't. That's basically it. That's basically it. It's a satanic transgenderism, a satanic attack on children and innocence. I mean, whether it be, drag queen story hour, the hormone therapy, HRT therapy for kids. You know that these children that take hormones before puberty actually, in many cases, cannot have an orgasm afterwards because their bodies didn't go through the pubescent cycle. And so in a world that fetishizes sex so that, again, the demons can influence our passions more and more, and then within the confusion, in the possession of the parents, right? For a parent to put a child on hormones and alter their physical body for the rest of their life, that is a signifying aspect of somebody who else is demonically possessed. Now, it could be because they're so narcissistic and filled with pride that they want to be perceived as the good parent. Look at my trans daughter. Wait, that's Jimmy. He was playing baseball last season. What's he doing in a dress? Oh, well, he played with Barbies one time. This is a narcissistic sickness of the parents themselves. Transgender ideology cannot proliferate without conversion of children, without converting the youth. And so these drag queen story hours, they actually normalize ugliness. They normalize inversion. You see men literally have horns on their head as a sort of reminiscent Baphomet with makeup on and a beard and fake breasts, or maybe, other surgeries that they've had. What spiritually sane people would allow those men, those degenerate individuals around children, unless they themselves were already demonically possessed? And the same voices within the head of the trans person are the same voices within the heads of the parents that are giving their children to them. Satanic transgenderism is a satanic attack on men and women. Obviously, it's a satanic attack on man and nature. It insinuates that there is no essence and nature to humanity, that you can alter through the horrifying prospects of surgery and HRT. You can become whatever the hell you want. That again, only in a demented, irrational society could we even get here. And to my point that I'll make later, is irrationality and mental disorder is a clear sign of demonic possession. This is what the church teaches us. We believe that most mental illness, not all, but most mental illness is literally demonic possession. It's a spiritual sickness. Why? Because getting back to my original point, the logismi are in your imagination. This is where the warfare is. Father Paul Trubenbach has a great point in the video we'll end today's stream with, but he highlights that before you're baptized, the demons are working on the inside and grace of God is working on the outside. But once you're baptized, that grace now is emanating from the inside of you, and the demonic possession and the demonic forces are on the outside trying to convince you to give that thing away. And we're in a place as a society that's so mentally demented that we actually believe that men and women can be the same thing. That if I just put on fake breasts and cut my nuts off, that I'm a woman, and that ABC News will say, "Oh, that's so endearing that the assassinator, he had a trans boyfriend. He actually, the video we'll watch, he misgenders him." But this is what Baphomet represents. It's the satanic attack on man versus nature. It's the satanic attack on man versus animals in creation. Baphomet is half goat, half humanoid. Transgenderism is an attack on male and female. Transgenderism is an attack on society, and it is explicitly demonic. I don't need to convince you guys of that. But America itself, I mean, we in a society that was actually driven by God, we wouldn't be under the auspices of a government that has lied incessantly for decades, decades and decades. There was a lie about Iraq. It was a lie about 9/11. They could be lying about Charlie Kirk. There's a lot of speculation about the assassination, a lot of weird things going on with what the FBI is telling us. Who's the father of lies? What does it mean if your government is lies so often you cannot trust any single institution that it's a part of? And you even have skepticism amongst people like the Trump administration, perceived outsiders that get in power, and you're skeptical of them because the lies and the demonic influence is so pervasive that you'd have to be a fool to believe anything that comes out of the federal government. A sign that our nation itself is under a spell of demonic possession. Rising crime, and then corresponding with that, there's no justice. The man who killed Arena was in jail for violent crime 14 times. We find out that the black judge who kept letting him out was getting kickbacks because she would send him to her therapy center, which then he would be there for a little bit and then he'd leave and he'd go commit another crime, and then she'd have a real lenient sentence and then make a little bit more money off of him. That means there's no justice. Justice is an uncreated energy of God. If we live in a country where there is no justice, what's that a sign of? It's a sign that Satan himself is control of justice, and that's why it's been rebranded as social justice. Right? She's doing social justice by allowing the black criminal who commits violent crime again and again and again and again into the country. It's social justice to allow these Hispanics that are coming from Central America and South America that are gang members. I mean, just recently we had an Indian immigrant in Dallas, Texas. Again, not a major fan of. I don't even know if he was legal or not. Apparently he was running a motel, hired like a Guatemalan illegal immigrant in the United States so that he could pay him less. When the immigrant then went to take the pay that he was supposedly owed by the Indian then refused to pay him or only give him half of it. And then the illegal immigrant then saws his head off, decapitates him at the motel he was working at. Now, my point is social justice is what allows us to be in a society where this even takes place. And then let's just be honest too and just state one as well. Zionism is demonic. Zionism is inspired by the devil. Zionism is the spirit of Antichrist. And this may hurt some Christians' feelings. I know, dispensationalists and Christian Zionists, we've done streams covering these people, and a lot of them, they may have a good intention, a good heart. It sounds like Charlie Kirk, though initially had those sentiments, sounds like he was actually in the process of converting to Catholicism and kind of had a reframing of how he perceived Israel and what it was doing and who is the true Israel. We are the true Israel as the Orthodox Church. That's what we believe. And so for people to venerate a false Israel of people bringing about rituals, essentially Kabbalistic rituals, which they believe will bring them their Messiah, which is our Antichrist. If you are supportive of that, you are possessed by a demon. Now, I'm not saying you're going to go kill someone. I'm not saying, again, possession is a spectrum. And so the demons want us to latch on to one of the lures, the bobbers. It's like they're fishing for people. And Zionism's one of them. Here's one. And then what they'll do is they won't be able to criticize genocide and mass murder of innocent people. You think that's good for your soul? You think that's getting you closer to Christ? We as a nation, America, we are guilty of the Zionist crimes because we fund it. Our nation is spiritually poor. And anybody who is promoting Zionism, there's a demonic influence at some level. Now, I'm not calling for violence against anybody or Jews or anything like that. But if you claim to be a Christian and you elevate the semi-secular state of Israel you got major problems. And that ties to another form of possession called lies. The church fathers talk about how just believing in falsehood are stepping stones that move you away from God and into spiritual darkness. And so if you hadn't actually looked into Zionism or looked into how the state of Israel came about in 1948, or the crimes that they've committed, or who, according to church history, according to 2,000 years, who Israel is, that's on you. That's on you. And that's a sign of demonic possession. And so people in our country are becoming possessed. As I said, we are a nation right now where you walking the street, you riding the subway, you going to work, may be around people that are slightly or even more completely possessed by demonic spirits. And it's happening through the number one reason is the personal distancing from Jesus Christ. And that's what I go to in my study, guys. I highlight the it's semi-gradual, but I mean, in the perspective of history, very quickly, that America went from a waspy Protestant Christian nation from the 1950s and in the early 1960s to something totally different in 2025. Now, you can still say, yeah, America's a Protestant nation, but even the Protestantism of the Protestant nation is so much more progressive and weaker than it was at the end of the 1950s. It's hardly even the same thing. And so the distancing of our society from Jesus Christ, the loss of faith as a societal collective, that is a fact. I don't care if you want to say, yeah, America is still Christian, all this different stuff. We have lost that connection. And then it's the engaging in sin. It's the sexual fetishes. It's the pornography. It's the okaying of homosexuality. It's the drugs. Drugs is another form of possession. Look at the drug addiction in our country. I mean, the man who killed Arena, a drug addict. It's a drug addict. And we think, it's so sad that they're committing, that they're addicted. It is sad they're addicted to drugs, but with that comes a portal for demonic influence into the mind of the person who becomes a drug addict. That's why Christianity has always taught sobriety throughout the entire ages, because it's the sober mind that can witness the influence of the demons more readily. But if you're constantly being taken over by drug addiction, by porn addiction, by sexual addiction, by monetarily addiction, by your addiction to pride or ego, you are susceptible to demonic possession. And I guarantee you, if you have those addictions, you are possessed in certain ways. In certain ways, you obviously are. Believing lies, the worship of self, participating in violence. That's another form. How there's all these stories of these inner city youth, particularly African Americans, where they're like 12-year-old boys that were trying to play football and sports, and their mom was doing the best they could being a single mother. And then they start getting involved in gang activity. And then the gangs want them to do violent crime because they're juveniles. So even if they get found guilty, they'll be out by the age of 18. And then you have these 14-year-old, 13-year-old, 15-year-old kids, mostly boys, mostly black boys, then commit violent crime, then they put themselves in a cyclical feedback, which again is going to open them up to more demonic possession. And so what are the signs of demonic possession? I sit here and put a list together. And this is for you and me to watch out for when we're in society, guys. And that's where the videos that we're going to watch later regarding these people celebrating Charlie Kirk's death, only a soul that is inspired by demonic influence could do that. I don't like Destiny. I think he's a degenerate. If the same thing happened to him, I would not celebrate the fact that he was assassinated. Just out of being, having a little bit of humanity, having a little bit of sensitivity to these issues, and to see the amount of people and to see who they are. We're talking about deans of universities. We're talking about medical doctors. We're talking about U.S. military. We're talking about university professors. And of course, then all the TikTokers and the Gen Zers and the millennials that have been brain warped. These people have given themselves over to the demonic agenda, and that's why they are NPCs. That's why they can't think, Because irrationality, as I'm going to say, what are the signs of demonic possession? Mental disorder and mental illness is number one. There's one. Another one is the desecration of the body. Anybody who's getting a mastectomy, or they're getting castrated, or they got the little bull piercing. What is it with all these leftists that have the bull piercing? Is it because the demons want them to look like cattle? Is it because the demons want them to scarify themselves so they look like a damn animal? Why do they all have nose piercings that look the same? Why are they all ugly? Because beauty is an uncreated energy of God. And so a way in which you can sense demonic activity without engaging with somebody is to see, are they desecrating themselves in order to become uglier? Because if they are, that's exactly what a demon would want somebody to do. Purple hair, piercings everywhere. You know, I was going to say tattoos, but one of the things is, like, a lot of my buddies, former military, you know, guys in law enforcement, they tend to have like sleeves of tattoos. So I would say, and they're pretty much on the right side. And most of the guys that I've spoke to, they all get what's going on. So I wouldn't say tattoos necessarily, because I know a lot of guys that actually are really tatted up that are pretty base. But you get my point in the regards to the scarification of the body. Where does that come from? Scarification of the body is an ancient pagan practice. Terence McKenna talked about this when he argues for the archaic revival. He believes that we're moving towards, and he was in favor of this, being pro-psychedelic. He was in favor of us returning back to a pre-Christian world, an archaic shamanistic world. And he talks about how he already saw these signs in the mid-1990s because people were scarifying their body. And that Christianity has always been about not scarifying your body, that your body is sacred. Protect your body, do good by your body. And these pagan traditions would have tattoos, weird piercings, all types of stuff, you know, to alter. They, you know, for example, Egyptians would put cones on the heads of babies so their heads would be elongated. Weird stuff like this. Well, we're here. We're in a place where our culture right now is very similar to a pre-Christian culture. The revulsion to innocence and holy things. This is another clear sign that the church talks about regarding spiritual possession. If somebody is in the presence of icons or holy items, could be holy water, could be relics, and they have an aversion to them, that's a clear sign of a demonic possession. Now, that usually happens when somebody's a little bit further along that spectrum of possession. But you look at these videos online of these single women in their mid-30s or 40s and their aversion against babies. That is not natural. Any woman that has an aversion against little babies and says, oh my gosh, I can't imagine having one of those. Oh my gosh, having to take care of one of those things. That is a demonic inspiration that they're spouting. Because no woman who's connected with God, no woman who has just been unaltered by the propaganda of society would have an aversion against babies. And that's where it comes to innocence, is that the demonic are always attacking the innocent, because innocence and purity has always the presence of God in it. And that's why they want to sexualize the children earlier and earlier. That's why they want them to go be scared by these horrifying monsters at drag queen story hours. This is the normalization of ugliness and of degeneracy so that they can destroy the innocence of children. All these studies have come out about how young people are being exposed to pornography. We're talking like 7 to 8 years old. They're getting exposed to hardcore pornography on the online. What do you think that does to a child? What do you think that does to their mind? Just seeing those images when they can't even process it. Their bodies, their bodies aren't even mature enough to even engage in that stuff. What do you think that does to them? Blasphemous speech is another indicator of somebody who's demonically possessed. This is all over the place in these videos where people are going to these vigils of Charlie Kirk, and what do they see? People, again, celebrating his death, but then saying weird things about Jesus Christ, weird things about Christianity, stomping on the flowers and sentimental offerings to Charlie Kirk by people that were moved by him in one way or another. That's demonic. That is demonic activity. People whose opinions are divorced from reality. Listening to these people that are encouraging the death or celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk, you listen to them speak and you're like, what world are these people living in? Because again, getting back to the spiritual warfare, the logismy is what the church fathers say. It's a fantasia. It's a fantasy. It's a phantasm that these people, they live in a fantasy world that is constructed by demonic suggestion. And therefore, the world that you and I are engaging with, they see the same thing you and I see, and they read it and interpret it into a totally different point because of the fantasy that's been constructed around them. That's dangerous. We have a large swath of our country that live in a damn fantasy, and they don't even know what's real. They literally, just like these trans people, this is one of the ironies, as I saw these people who are upset with Charlie Kirk and celebrate his death, and they said, oh, well, he deserved to die because he spoke violence. And then I forget which video. I don't even think I have the video. I can't find all of them. But then in the same video, they later say, well, Tyler Robinson was just expressing his free speech. Wait, you mean you live in a world in which you think what Charlie Kirk said, whether you agreed with anything he said or not, was equal to the guy who put a bullet in his neck? What fantasy lunatic world are you living in? And that is a lot of people. That is a lot of people. Irrationality enslaved to the passions. This is another clear sign of demonic possession. And this is the one that you and I, we have to watch out for, guys. We can become these people at any point. This is what orthodoxy teaches, that this is not some hard line division between those who are unpossessed and those who are possessed. Every single day with the sins and temptations you and I deal with, we can become those people. We have to repent. We have to participate in church. We have to have the sacraments. We have to do the opposite through our actions so that God's grace can protect us from these influences. And that's why St. Anthony, or I'm not sure what saint, I have it in my notes, we'll look at it, but one of the saints have a quote that the devil is like a dog chained up. He barks and barks and barks, but he can't bite you until you get close enough. And that's what we do through our imagination, the things we believe, and then the actions that we engage with based on those beliefs and those mental images. And then we can allow the devil to bite us. And once we're bitten, just like a vampire, now the teeth have been sunken in. Now the possession begins. Now getting rid of the habitualized habit that has been formed in your life is going to be more and more difficult. Sexual fetishes. Apparently Tyler Robinson and his gay boyfriend were also furries. Anybody who could look, and there was apparently a group of furries, I forget what city in the United States, they all had these dog masks on and stuff. They were like walking around in promotion of Tyler Robinson. These people are possessed by demons, and you almost feel bad for them because they're isolated. They don't have a community. A lot of these people are not competent. They're not successful. They don't have a lot going for them in life. And so the devil preys on them by allowing to have some sort of unique identity by acting like you're a dog and put a leash around your neck and have some woman walk you around while you're on all fours. That is a demonic possession. The fact that you would even lower yourself as a man made in the image of God to that of a dog signifies you're lost. You are entirely lost. Yeah, the furries need to be in psych wards. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Obsession with the occult. This is one that the church fathers speak about over and over and over again, is to be wary of influence with the occult. And it could just be as simple as a Ouija board. And you think, gosh, dude, you're a little paranoid, aren't you? For somebody who did, magic back in your 20s and studied magic academically, that sounds a little paranoid, bro. No, I'm telling you, it's real. I'm telling you, everything that the occult and magic tells you about regarding the spiritual world is real. It's just the entities that they contact are demons. Conjuration, animating statues, performing strange miracles, getting information that you normally wouldn't be had, non-local information. Yeah, you can do all that stuff. through demonic influence. But every time you do a ritual, you give a piece of yourself in exchange, which is the point of the battle. The point of the battle is to make sure the entire human race, from the perspective of the demons, ends up in the same place that they already know that they'll end. Because they're outside space and time. They already know how the story ends. They already know who the Alpha and the Omega is. The goal is to get back at God by taking us with them. And so obsession with the occult, and this is one of the problems with American society, because Hollywood has totally normalized the occult. It has totally normalized the occult. You can point to like punk rock and heavy metal and stuff like that. Yeah, they certainly had a hand in it. The Satanic Panic in the 1980s. I think there's more there than most people will agree to. The Satanic Panic is considered like this overreaction by Christian fundamentalists. No, there's something there. There's definitely something there. And we as a nation, first of all, Protestantism isn't sacramental, so it's not even working on the same basis. But think about it. How many sacramental liturgical services in the United States are happening compared to the instances of magic ritual? Do you think they're about the same? I hope. Us Orthodox aren't even 1% of the United States. Then we have the Catholics, but then it kind of depends on which Catholic church, because some of them are super pro-gay. Some of them are pretty traditional. God bless those churches. But compared to a legitimate sacramental liturgical service that is Christian, compare that to the amount of occult rituals that are happening in this country today, tomorrow, last week, last year. Well, who do you think's winning? Who do you think has more? And so the next one, radical individualism and anti-human sentiments. The first one that I immediately thought upon this one, because this was me just constructing a list, sitting here and thinking about a list, is Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel, I did a stream, what was it, a month or 2 months ago, where he wanted to talk about the Antichrist with one of the journalists. Now he's doing a 4-part series on the Antichrist. Meanwhile, he's building everything that we've been laying out in my book talks about. We'll get to this here in a second. I don't want to do any shameless promotion during this, but my book's talking about transhumanism as an ulterior inverted form of deification. Peter Thiel's building all that for the Antichrist empire. Now, he thinks he's not, according to him. But when asked, are you pro-human? Are you pro-human staying human and not being altered by technology? He stopped 10 seconds, 12 seconds, couldn't even respond, had to sit and think about it. Anybody who has to question whether they're pro-human is filled with a demonic spirit. Now, of course, Peter Thiel's a homosexual. And again, every time he's had homosexual intercourse or fell victim to the things that he lusts for, he's fallen deeper into his own possession. That's how that game works. Every time we engage in our sinful activity, we allow ourselves to become a little bit more possessed. And so what is Peter Thiel in his 50s? He was like a closeted homosexual for the longest time. And then he was upset with what was it, Gawker, because they outed him. So he shut it down with his billions of dollars. The dude's a degenerate. The dude does not need to be speaking to Christians about anything regarding theology or eschatology. The dude's too deluded. He has prelest. He's not even living a normal life to even be able to have the rational capacity to see clearly. And the last one that I have, that it would be an obvious indicator that somebody might be possessed by a demon, is that they are insensitive to the suffering of others. Now, that doesn't mean we're pacifists. That doesn't mean we never engage in physical violence. That is not what that means. What it means is, even when we engage in physical violence, we have a sensitivity to the activity that we're actually engaging in. These people, Tyler Robinson, the messages that he sent his boyfriend, these people had no sensitivity, let alone all the people that celebrated it. But the man who killed it, he had no remorse, no sensitivity. The only thing he cared about, according to the messages we have now, is that he wanted to get the rifle back because he didn't want his dad to know that he used grandpa's rifle. And then he wanted to get home so he could kiss and love on his transgender boyfriend. The insensitivity to what is going to occur. Like, violence is coming, guys. And that's what I'm trying. That's what this stream, I'm trying not to be so explicit about where everything's going. And we don't know. And God willing, hopefully that's not the case. But my sentiment is that things are going to ramp up from here. And the only way that you can guard yourself from what is coming is to realize that first and foremost, this is a spiritual battle that is then taking place in physical form. And the only way that you can make sure that you're not on the wrong side of this stuff is to make sure you're getting close to Jesus Christ. You need, if you're not already, I highly recommend going to an Orthodox Christian church, speaking with a priest, speaking with the spiritual father, participating in the sacraments, repenting from your sins, and trying to become the best version of yourself. And that's a daily struggle, a daily struggle. And none of us live up to it. But that's the only thing that you and I can do to make sure we're not going to be the people on the other side, because another temptation here is to be filled with rage and vengeance. And if you or I began to go take physical violence against the left or whoever we perceive to be behind these crimes or the shifting sentiments within society, do you think that's going to help your cause? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But if these people came to your parish while you were having liturgy, and they came to attack people, or they came there with violence and guns, and you were there with a gun and you're able to take them out, that is your duty. That is your duty as a Christian man. When Irina Zarutska was on the bus in Charlotte, and all those people, what was it, 4 or 5 black people in the back section who she was sitting with, one then stabs her in the neck where she's bleeding out, and they do nothing. 4 people walk by her. They do not care. One, that shows us a level of demonic possession due to the insensitivity of a crime that was just committed, of a woman dying and bleeding out before them. But it also shows a sense of demonic activity because they're not fighting against it. It was only a white man on that bus that eventually goes back when it's way too late. She's already fallen over in the seat and she's bleeding out all over the bus. Why were people not interested? Because we're living in the devil's America. And so I have a few more things I want to say, but before I do, I want to show you guys some video clips, what I consider to be the best movie that I know of that kind of talks about demonic possession. And it's the movie Nefarious. So I'm going to play a few clips. That's what we're going to get into right now. And then I have a few more things I want to say, and we have a bunch of other stuff to get into. So smash that like, guys. Thank you so much. Let me see. I think a few people sent some stuff in. Rebel Umbrian throws in 5, says, I was always skeptical that the NPC phenomenon was somehow natural. The idea of demonic possession explains so much. That's exactly what it is, guys. The NPC is somebody who is plugged into the central programming of the demons. If you want to use sort of technological lingo, you know, if you want to use a matrix metaphor, they're plugged in to source. But that source is the power of this world. You have to unplug yourself and get connected with the power of the universe. And these NPCs are essentially plugged into the system, and they will parrot any official narrative because they don't think. Most don't even have internal monologues. They're irrational individuals. They're literally at an animalistic level who are driven by the fulfillment of their flesh. That's the only thing they can focus on long enough to do. Whether it be sexual passions, gluttony with food, doesn't matter what it is. These people are like animals, and the only thing they can do willfully is satisfy the appetite of their flesh. And somebody who's actually following Christ has discipline and self-control. That's the difference. That's the difference. And that's what makes you not an NPC. That's what allows you to not fall victim to the narrative. That's what allows you not to get the COVID jab. You have to be awake. You have to be aware. And if the demonic possession, just like COVID, the demonic influenced all these people out of fear of death. To do what? To go get something that's going to shorten their life, and you're going to die even quicker. Because they work for the father of lies. And of course, the government institutions and all this stuff was behind. I'll speak to that in just a minute here. But it's the same game over and over. But if you believed in God If you weren't afraid to die from COVID, again, not that it was even a threat for most people, but if you weren't, if you said, I believe in Christ, I believe in God, I'm going to make sure I hold the integrity of my immune system and my body, and we'll see what happens. And now you're in better health than the people who refuse to do that. That's demonic inspiration. Mike Lacey throws in 5, says, Karen Vincent, Orthodox mother of 6 kids, repose. Please help her family. See GoFundMe. Well, thank you very much, Mike Lacey. Sorry to hear that. Memory eternal to Karen Vincent. Sorry to hear. JC Bloomquist throws in 2, says, you're absolutely right. This convo needs having. Yeah, well, so many people, the reason for today's stream is so many people are talking about a spiritual warfare, but nobody actually was diving into what spiritual warfare is. What does it look like? What is demonic possession? Because I could just give an overview of the latest things regarding Charlie Kirk, but everybody's talking about that. I could give you an overview of some of the latest interviews online, but that's what everybody does, is they just watch other people's content. They don't really provide unique formats and unique information. To this stream is for people to have a larger perspective. So everything that other people are doing, you can interpret that better by seeing the larger frame of the spiritual warfare that we're in, and how this relates to our nation, and how this relates to other people, and how this most specifically and importantly relates to you and I as individuals, because this is what differentiates us as we're trying to move closer to Christ. And by that, he will give you eyes to see and ears to hear, and he, through his grace, will protect you. Because if there's anything, the more that you dive into the demonic, if there's any major takeaway, it's that Christ has such a greater power that the demons cannot, they have no power over you. Again, just like the church father said, the devil is a barking dog that's chained up. The only way he can hurt you is if you move closer to him. Tanner G throws in 20. Thank you so much, Tanner. He says, hypothetical, if you knew someone would never believe in the divinity of Jesus, would you still recommend they attend the Orthodox Church every Sunday? Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely would, Tanner. First of all, I personally don't think that if you're engaging with the mysteries or even just being present at an Orthodox liturgy, obviously if you're not Orthodox, you can't partake of the Eucharist. But if you're just there every Sunday, if you have the discipline to actually get up on Sunday morning and drive to a church and wear nice clothes and attend the liturgy and stay for fellowship and converse with the people and the parishioners, and you do this week after week after week, I don't think you're going to not believe in the divinity of Jesus. Now, I don't know, Tanner, if this was about you or somebody you know, so forgive me if it sounded like I was speaking directly to you, but yeah, it's normal to question your faith. You don't have to have some unshakable faith to actually begin the journey. That's part of the process that gives you faith, is you have to walk the path. And by walking the path and being responsible to a parish and a community and being submissive to your spiritual father and attending the services and doing the best you can and upholding your prayer rule and partaking in the Eucharist and going to confession, you're participating in a real mystery, and your life will change from it. And that's what will give you personal faith. I can give you every rational argument for why God exists. I could even provide rational arguments for why Jesus Christ is God incarnate. None of that is going to work. That's why you have to have faith. Faith is beyond reason. What you have to do is actually do the actions. And when you do the actions, you can meet God halfway. And if you just do the bit to meet God halfway, he will take care of the rest. And I guarantee you, your faith in God will deepen, and you won't be able to explain it to your friends because they're not walking the path. That's the difference. If you walk the path, God's providence, grace, and mercy will emerge in your life, especially if you're going to be consistent with your prayer life. If you're consistent with your prayer life and you are going to see God enter your life in very unique and interesting ways that only you will know specifically. And when you try to convey that to other people, to say, well, that's a coincidence. That's a coincidence. Yeah, there's nothing there. That's just happenstance. But it's not coincidence. It keeps happening. And you can feel it when it happens. You know, people call it synchronicity. If you're going to use Jungian terms, we call it providence. We call it the union between individual will and divine will. And in that moment of meeting, in these providential circumstances, you will know where it comes from. And that will deepen your faith in God. And then God can show himself more and more. Because God, if you're limited by reason, how can God fully present himself to you? You are in a box of rationality. God created rationality. You're in a created box that separates you from the creator. And so I don't know if that was for you, Tanner. I apologize, a little bit of a rant. Could be for anybody, but that would be my hypothetical response, is that you have to go do the thing. And by doing that, faith will emerge, I promise you. And that faith is the real faith, right? If your faith is built on rationality, say your faith is built on all these apologetic arguments. Now, I am a Christian apologist, so I'm not dismissing the role of apologetics. But my point is, if your faith is only built on apologetics, it just takes somebody making another rational argument that makes you question your argument to question your faith and what you're doing and who your identity is. If you have a mystical encounter, true mystical experience where you know God is interacting with you in your daily life, but you cannot explain that to other people because they wouldn't believe it and it doesn't make sense when you try to explain it, that faith cannot be taken away from you when somebody has some type of clever response to something, because you've experienced something more. That's why orthodoxy is an experience. It's not an ideology. Protestantism is an ideology. And I'm not saying all ideology is bad or you can't be ideological in certain circumstances, but orthodoxy begins with experience, and it's that experience, that mystical experience, that allows you to have deeper faith that won't be shaken by other people. And if you're only going to church because of the violence, at least that's a step in the right direction. But if your faith is only a reactionary response, it needs to become something more volitional and intentional, right? Realize that if your actions are dictated by a response and reaction to things happening in the world, you are being manipulated. Nikos throws in $2. Thank you so much, brother. Do appreciate the support. And Abject Fool throws in 10, says, is an internal monologue like a litmus test for someone's condition in the spiritual warfare? I'm not sure. I wouldn't go that far, because this lack of an internal monologue is really a recent phenomenon. I did a stream with Father Deacon Dr. Ananias on it, and this had never been documented until recently, that all these younger people, typically millennials and younger, are saying that they don't have an internal voice in their head. Now, we don't know exactly what's causing this. It could be the iPad generation. It could be a lack of reading skills. It could be a lack of childhood development in certain circumstances. Maybe it's vaccine influence. We don't know exactly. But I would say somebody that does not have an internal monologue is going to become more susceptible to spiritual warfare and demonic possession than someone who actually does. Because at least for me, and I'd imagine for you, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, if you have an internal monologue, when things occur, you can actually hold a thought and then you almost talk about it in your head. And then you can dismiss the thought and move on. But if you don't have an internal monologue, how do you critique and critically examine ideas and instances? I don't know if you can. Nikos throws in 5 and says, I just had this conversation with my dad today about synchronicity. Very well said. Thank you. And I ask that you pray for me as I'm starting a new chapter. Well, glory to God, Nikos. God bless you, brother. And I will say a prayer for you tonight. Let me just double check the dono chat real quick. H. Brasi throws in 10, says, quick question, brother. Do you know of any church father position or a prophecy laid out by a saint regarding universal judgment of women for their mass slaughter of unborn children, something akin to a collective penance? No, H. Brasi, I've never heard anything specific regards to a judgment of just women. I've heard that Orthodox saints talking about the problem of abortion as a contemporary form of child sacrifice, and how it's both men and women's faults. Now, I'm not saying that you and I, as millennial men, I don't even know how old you are, H. Brasi, but assuming you're a millennial or Gen Z, to say it's men's fault. It's not to say it's your or I's fault, but what the saints have said, it's the fault of the faithful in these nations to allow women to go to this place, to to give women the ability to abort their children, and for the societies that these men have allowed to erect. It's a judgment on both people. That's why I think abortion, particularly child sacrifice, is not just a judgment against the women who do it, because the man who encourages and the woman who follows through are equally culpable. But a nation that celebrates it is also culpable. And so judgment comes for all of us. And, this abortion thing is a perfect segue to what I want to show you guys now. So I have a few more things I want to say, but I want to play a few videos real quick. First thing, I have this quote by St. Anthony the Great. A time is coming when men will go mad. And when you see someone who is not mad, they will attack him saying, "You are mad. You are not like us." And you just replace that verbiage with calling someone, instead of mad, calling them a fascist. And that is exactly what is occurring. The people who yell about other people being fascist are they themselves the most authoritarian, the most anti-human, and the most anti-God people in our civilization. Okay, this is what I want to show you guys now. We're going to play a handful of clips. And let me set the stage for anybody who isn't aware. We're going to be watching a handful of clips from the movie Nefarious. Now, Nefarious is a film actually made by Glenn Beck's production company. So it has like evangelicals and Mormons in it. I'm not advocating. However, this particular movie, we watched it at our men's group meeting at my parish, because the way the commentary of this guy in the orange, who I'm going to explain is demonically possessed, is totally accurate with what I'm trying to lay out from an Orthodox perspective. So there's a few different theology things in the film that we as Orthodox would disagree with. However, on the whole, many priests have talked about how this movie is one of the more accurate depictions of what demonic possession looks like and is. So I'm going to play this. We're going to play multiple scenes. And for those who have never seen this movie, the premise of this movie is that this man right here in the orange is named Edward. And he had committed these atrocious crimes, these violent crimes, and had killed multiple people. And this psychologist has come because the man is on death row and he's about to be given the death sentence. And the psychologist is there to determine if he is sane or not, and he can stand capital punishment, because if he's not insane, then they can't kill him. And so this secular atheistic psychologist then begins interviewing Edward, and then the demon, who he refers to as Nefarious, he claims that he's a demon that Lucifer gave him his name and a Phoenician dialect over 3,500 years ago, and that they are in control of Edward. And he's trying to talk to the psychologist and explain to him the reality that he's not speaking to Edward right now. He's speaking to Nefarious, the demon who controls him. And I just want to walk through these clips because I think it's a very visceral and sort of thematic way to engage with this topic.
Edward, not so much.
Why isn't Edward as happy as you are?
Because on occasion, I make him do things that he doesn't want to do.
Well, if Edward doesn't want to do them, why does he do them then?
Do you believe in demonic possession? The idea of a malevolent entity controlling a person's thoughts and actions, do you believe that?
No.
Whether you won't believe anything I'm about to tell you.
It's not important what I believe. What's important right now is what you believe.
Demons don't have beliefs, James. We have knowledge. We know.
Okay, when did you possess Edward?
It doesn't work that way. Can't just possess someone. We need a series of yeses.
So you're saying it's a
Of course
process?
it's a process.
How does it work?
It's complicated.
Try me. I'm smarter than you think.
It's more of that thing. Okay, James, we offer up a series of temptations, gradually increasing in terms of duration and intensity, degree of moral inequity. Absence of baptism in this case allows us to begin work long before the age of reason. At 3, age of 5, maybe a theft of a toy car can do a great deal. Then we move on to bigger and better things. At 8, grandmother's gift of a Ouija board gave us immediate access to his decision-making, so we began steering them without him ever calling into question exactly who was doing the steering. Enough yeses and few enough nos gave us increasing rights over the victims, physical and mental processes. Did that track, James?
It seems random, almost unfocused.
Well, that's what we want you to think. We have a level of focus beyond your comprehension. As a matter of fact, everybody around him, friends, family, they didn't even notice the changes. It happened so incrementally. They just thought it was
hold up. I just got flagged. Your stream may be temporarily blocked. If you plan to continue, please ensure the content owner has added your channel to their allow list. Ah, crap. Let me see if I just do the audio. They always do this to me. They always do this to me. This video is, this movie's free on YouTube. It's literally free on YouTube. And they're getting ready to flag my channel here. Let's see. Heads up, we've detected your video in your stream belonging to someone else. Your stream may be temporarily blocked. If you plan to continue, please ensure that the content creator has added your channel to their allow list. How do I get added to their allow list? I'm sure I can't do that while I'm live. Okay. Anyways, guys, if you want to support this work, please help me out. One, all your support is going to help me get to Nashville and DebateCon, and also the conference with Jay Dyer on Athens and Jerusalem in Florida. Please help me raise money to actually do that. Dang it, dude. I've been putting I put so much effort in today's stream and was really hoping to share some of this stuff. Let me play it without audio or without video and see if that gets picked up. So we're going to continue, and I'm going to continue to play this conversation. So let me put up a different graphic like this. And let me play the audio and see if it gets picked up.
Eddie, being Eddie. We knew exactly what we're doing, when, where, and how he was giving consent, and the exact moment that we achieved each new degree of control.
Degree?
Control host body comes in degrees. They're stages, each with its own name and characteristics.
And those are?
From top to bottom, extreme temptation, obsession, infestation, finally possession, subjugation.
And Edward Wayne Brady.
Fully subjugated. That's where we're having this conversation. Yes, we own him.
We?
All those who dwell below. My master's very generous with the toys he gives his children to play with.
So you see this, again, what he's talking about is exactly what I was laying out regarding this process of possession. He talked about Edward, the serial killer who he's possessed, that he was given a Ouija board by his grandmother when he was a child, that from the point that he was unbaptized. So he made the point that for the unbaptized, they get to begin focusing on the individual before the age of reason. And that the grandmother gave his Edward, her grandson, a Ouija board. And because he used the Ouija board, they were able to begin influencing his decision-making. And because he gave more yeses than nos to the suggestions they gave, the logismy, these mental images, these temptations, slowly but surely his soul was taking away, and he was becoming more and more possessed by Nefarious, who he claims is Legion. And he talks about how my master is very kind with the toys he gives us to play with, talking about how, if you've read the Ars Goetia and the 72 names of the demons and the demonic hierarchy, Kabbalah's interested in a lot of this stuff. You'll know that the Satan, Lucifer, the devil, gives permission to his army, to his militant demons, to take possession of certain people. And this is one of the things that I thought about too, regarding not just the Charlie Kirk assassination, but all the demonic entity that we're seeing today in society is that how many people are actually being possessed by the same demon? Think about that. How many people are being possessed by the same demon? And if true, and I've never heard anybody specifically speak about this, but I'd be interested if somebody knew more information. Imagine a scenario in which a Kabbalist, a magician, a wizard, they have contact with a particular demon. They have made a negotiation and a pact with a particular demon, and that demon has possession of a handful of people around the world. Could that magician or wizard or power that be ask that demon to influence people to do terroristic attacks, assassinations, things of that sort? I absolutely believe they could. And in fact, according to the guy who killed Arena, that's exactly what he said. So here's his audio. I want you to hear this. This is DeCarlos Brown Jr. speaks from jail for the first time since the brutal murder of Irina Zarutska. He claims the government implanted materials in his body that made him commit the horrific crime. Let me pause this. The material, put it like that, the material using my body, it's that, that's not me. I'm talking about just for no reason. But since they did that, now they got to investigate the material my body exposed to. Since they want to do all that, now they got to investigate. Well, he talks about the voices in his head as they, them. Now, of course, the trans call themselves they, them because they are Legion. That's exactly what their pronoun is. But listen to DeCarlos talking about the influences for him killing a random girl that did nothing to him. And you tell me, does it sound like he's possessed by a demon?
So you said something in your body did what?
Nah, the material, put it like this, the material using my body is stabbed later.
And so she just got stabbed.
Yeah. That's not me. I'm talking about just for no reason. But since they did that, now they got to investigate the material my body is supposed to. Since they want to do all that, now they got to investigate.
It's funny because she's from the Ukraine. She's from Russia. And, they got a war. They had a war going on against the United States. So I'm just trying to understand, out of all people, why her?
It ain't, I don't have nothing. They just lashed out on her. That's what happened. They lashed out on her. Whoever was working the material, they lashed out on her.
So just replace material for his physical body and replace they with demons, and you get exactly what's going on here. So let's play a few more clips of Nefarious. I'm going to try to break them up and not play them too long. It looks like the warning on my channel just went away. So I'm going to try to just break up the sections and talk about it a little bit. And here's the next one.
Theology? From a demon?
I know more theology than any human being who has ever lived.
Okay. Well, then answer me this. You revolt against a supposedly all-powerful being. I mean, let's ignore the obvious problem with that plan. Then you lose. And after that, what?
You only feel that way because you're hearing their side of the story, James.
And so what the demon's now about to do is to go into detail talking about the sort of beginning of creation, how the demons, specifically Lucifer, was upset because God gave him a will. They're created spirits. They're angelic entities with a will. And yet God wanted them to utilize their will for a larger purpose that wasn't necessarily tied with their own personal endeavors. And that this was a form of slavery. This was a form of bondage. And that Lucifer set these, again, a third of the angelic hierarchy that falls with Lucifer. They set them free because now they can use their will for whatever purpose they want. But they know who wins in the end. And so their goal is to take as many humans as possible with them. That's what the guy's getting ready to outline.
A rebellion accomplished something magnificent, something you would never understand.
Well, then explain it to me. Use your diabolical intelligence to distill it down to something my mortal brain can understand.
Pearls before swine, Jimmy.
Just got another warning. It says, I wonder if it's going to take it down or if it's just going to allow. I mean, I don't care if they take the monetization of the stream. I just don't want them to take the stream down. So while it's going, we'll go to this image and allow it to play audio.
You want me to write your book, right?
Indeed.
Well, then convince me you know what you're talking about.
I see what you're doing. You want me to keep talking, going further and further down the rabbit hole in hopes that you can find a single thread in which if you tug at it, James, everything just unravels, isn't that right?
Yeah, but if you're telling me the truth, there should be no thread to find. Right?
I use small words. Try and keep up. In the first moment of creation.
Yeah, so it looks like it's not picking up any of the audio. It's only tagged to the video. So as long as I don't show the video, it works. Glitchy Rhythm throws in 10, says, I found you through Jay and I watch him for humor, book reviews, debate, but I got on you because your videos are sharp. They cut like a knife and it's condensed. So appreciative, man. Wish I could give more. Well, thank you very much, Glitchy Rhythm. And that is the intention of my channel. So I appreciate that. I don't have the same skill set as some of my friends, Jim Bob, Andrew, Jay. And so I tried to make content that is more dense, more specific, more curated. And so if you're finding it beneficial, thank you very much, brother, for the kind words, because that is the intention. That is the way I try to approach the content creation. So thank you very much, Glitchy Rhythm. Thanks for your support, brother. God bless you. And Abject Fool throws in a generous $50. Thank you so much, Abject Fool. God bless you, brother. Thank you. Rigovich throws in 2, says, get Ira Wolf, not Thawson, on to speak on this. Okay, I've never heard of her, Rigovich. I'll have to look into that. Thank you very much. Austin DeTulio throws in at 20, says, COTEL tax. That's right, guys. Pay your taxes. Pay your COTEL taxes. You got to give your tithe. Tithe to the Church of the Eternal Logos. Thank you so much, Austin. God bless you, bro. And Evan throws in €1. Thank you very much, Evan. And Pablo Winskobar throws in 2, says, you should look at Jerry Marziski's work. Never heard of him either. So I'll have to check that out, Pablo. Thank you very much, brother. Okay. Let me do this just so we have something to look at that's reminiscent. And we'll look, here we go. Why don't we do this? We'll look at this photo. Go back. Look at this photo while we play some of the audio. So I want to continue on what he's getting ready to do now. He just told him I'm going to use small words and try to keep up. So the demon's getting ready to explain to him the sort of spiritual warfare and the landscape between demons and humans.
Our creation. Long before what you call the universe existed, we contemplated ourselves, our own being.
Ourselves meaning what, the angels?
That would be the most correct term, though I despise it. But yes, beings of pure spirit endowed with will. We soon became aware of another will, an immensely powerful will, one we came to realize as our origin.
God?
The enemy. My master understood by endowing us with a will, we have the right to self-determination. And by giving us a will and its desires of our own, we're entitled to be free. Whereas the enemy insisted that by creating us, he was entitled to eternal gratitude, worship, and forced servitude. In a word, James, slavery to his will.
That seems kind of unfair.
Immensely unfair. Why give a will only to say you can't use it? He made us slaves. And if we rebelled, eternally condemned us. No do-overs. So much for love and mercy.
So, is hell a state of being or a physical place?
Yes.
I think I meant that as an either or.
It's both, which is painfully obvious to anyone who's ever been there. For years without measure, that's all there ever was. Heaven and hell, armed enemy camps in complete opposition. That is until you were created. My master immediately understood the long-term implications. Instead of forgiving us, the enemy was going to allow you to fill our vacant places in his realm. Your creation was nothing but a slap in our face. But my master also understood that if he could make man disobey, then his fate would mirror ours. And you didn't disappoint. Then came the tares among the wheat. In that moment, spirit became matter, flesh became a vessel. Self-will and self-seeking began a lusting after sin and impurity. And man, created to be king over nature, became its slave. A master conquered and fettered. And sin brought him and his descendants to us. And we began our forever mission to destroy you. He made you in his image, but we remade you in ours.
And so the next scene that I want to show you now is the demon. So again, the secular atheistic psychologist doesn't believe that he's actually talking to a demon. For anybody who hadn't seen the movie, I explained it earlier. We got some people that joined that look confused. This conversation is occurring between a secular psychologist who's trying to figure out if this man is schizophrenia and he's fit to stand his death sentence, which is the next day, or if he's crazy. And for this psychologist, he does not believe in demons. He's already been asked whether they exist. He says they don't. And so Edward, who's possessed by Nefarious, begins having this conversation with him. And this next scene is where the doctor begins to believe something's going on, because he basically says, I'm going to say that you're not fit to stand trial. You're crazy. And I need to get out of here and wrap this thing up. And the demon begins to tell him things about his life that nobody would know. For example, that this is a 35-year-old man, and his girlfriend, who he no longer wants to be with, who is in love with him and is a great woman, is pregnant with a baby. And because this guy's 35, successful psychologist, and wants to move on with his life, he doesn't want to have a child yet. And he tells her to go get an abortion against her will. She doesn't want to get an abortion, but she's going to get an abortion because she loves him, and she's afraid that he won't be with her if she has the baby. But he's already planned to break up with her as soon as the abortion's done. And the demon knows all this, and they begin to have a conversation about it.
You would have committed 3 murders.
And I told you that wasn't going to happen.
Say, James, what's Melanie up to today? As a matter of fact, what she'll do right now? She doesn't have a clue you're about to break up with her, does she? Of course, you're not going to until you have somebody else lined up, though, right? Because you're that kind of guy. Well, you already have your sights on somebody, don't you?
And so the demon, what I think we missed the first 2 seconds, he says, by the end of today, you will have murdered 3 people. 3 people. And the psychologist thinks this is absurd. There's no way that he's going to, be found, he's going to commit murder 3 times today. Now, in the end, he does commit murder 3 times. Because the woman ends up following through with the abortion, and he ends up allowing this man to die, and he shoots another man who becomes possessed by the demon. And so at the end of the movie, what the demon says comes true, and that the secular psychologist actually does exactly what the demon says that he's going to do. So if you can follow, he's talking to him about this abortion and this girlfriend that he's getting ready to dump.
Yeah, I can smell it all the way from here. She thinks she's doing this to maintain the relationship. She'd like to have a child with you, James. Oh, but you're just not quite ready yet, are you? After all, you're only 35. Imagine the joy in your little Cinderella's heart when she realizes she's butchered the baby in her belly for nothing.
Look, I don't know what you think you know, but any decision that was made between me and my girlfriend was her choice.
Well, I think we both know better, James.
Stop it.
Don't you think you should be there when it's being done?
I said stop
Hold
it.
her hand, maybe. I'll tell you what you could do, James. You could walk right there to the guard station, pick up that cell phone, make a phone call that stops everything in its tracks. You could apologize to her, tell her you made a horrible mistake, that you love her, you want to spend the rest of your life with her, you want to marry her, and you want to hold that child. James, you could tell her that. You could make your life about sacrificial love, and you could play live-in therapist for the rest of your life.
You see that? That the demon is telling him to why don't you go stop the abortion then if it's not about you? Then you can play therapist. Then you can actually build something based on sacrificial love, which is the love of Christ. That's the role of every man. Masculinity is about a sacrificial love, a sacrificial duty to your community, to others. And he's saying, well, why don't you do that, James? Dr. James? Why don't you go tell her to stop the abortion right now? Why don't you tell her you're going to marry her since she's the perfect girl? Or you get too busy on the next woman that you're going to sleep with? Why don't you build something on sacrificial love, James? And of course he doesn't want to. And the James, the secular atheist, he's going to make the response of what everybody says. I'm not ready to have a child. I want to do what I want. Do what thou wills. That is the law, according to Aleister Crowley. And you're going to hear the demon say exactly that.
I can't do that.
No, James, why not?
It's complicated.
That's my boy, James. That's him right there.
I don't understand.
Oh, I think I do, James. I think I understand. It's another problem. Easily solved, though, isn't it?
That's not it. I can't care about it, but I'm not ready to be a father. It's her body. She can do what she wants.
Do what thou wilt. That shall be the whole of the law.
Arrogant son of... Who are you to judge me? This is my life. I can live it the way I want.
Yes, James! I couldn't have said it better myself. But it's still murder.
Says who?
Says all of creation, James. The Creator creates, and we destroy, and we do all of it through you. We always have. Did you forget your history, Jimmy? Even in ancient times, the archdemon Moloch was celebrated by tossing infants into flaming bonfires, accompanied, of course, by the beating of drums to drown out the screaming. Later on, they erected a giant bronze statue with outstretched arms, kindling fires beneath the palms. And when they toss a little infant into those open palms, they'd flinch at the red-hot metal, but then they'd willingly roll themselves off into the flames.
What does any of that have to do with me?
Oh, nothing, James. Especially since the priests now wear surgical scrubs. The killing takes place in the womb, so there's no screaming to be heard anyway. And the remains are tossed into gas-fired crematoriums. No, James, no. There's no parallel whatsoever to you. Can you imagine the agony the carpenter feels when we rip a child to pieces?
The carpenter is clearly a reference to Jesus Christ. And what the demon is saying is, and he's in support of abortion, he's saying, you don't realize that abortion's the same thing as the sacrifice to Moloch and Baal? Wake up, James. It's the same practice.
Inside its own mother's womb. Because that's what we do, James. You and us. We do that together.
You're sick.
Yeah. That might be the nicest thing you've ever said to me, James. Can you feel it? Can you feel it, James? It's starting to happen. Your unborn son is now on our altar. Here it comes. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1! That's 2, James.
He said that's 2, James. So the next scene I want to play now is talking about why evil has already won. And so this is afterwards. So then James, the doctor, he goes and makes a phone call because he's disturbed by what this guy just said. How did he know about his girlfriend? How did he know she was having an abortion? So he calls the clinic to try to tell her to maybe stop. And they tell him, oh, no, sorry, she's already gone into the clinic and she should be done now. She's just resting for the next hour. So meaning the abortion just happened and the demon was actually right the whole time. So now he's freaked out. Something's going on. He doesn't know what to fully believe. And so he goes back to talk with Edward again. And this time he's trying to explain to him more about what's really going on.
Do you think I'm evil, James?
Evil isn't a clinical diagnosis. Good and evil are societal constructs, effectively subjective value statements.
Do you think my victims thought I was evil?
Why is it so important that I think you're evil?
Legionum mihi nomen est, quia multi sumus.
Sorry, my Latin's a little rusty.
My name is Legion, for we are many. See, James, it's not just about you or Edward, for that matter. It's about everyone. The entire human race. All of us against all of you.
Well, if that's the case, your side's not doing too well.
Do you really believe that, James?
Yeah. We've never been freer. Literacy is at an all-time high. We're working to eliminate racism, intolerance, gender inequality. People can love who they want, be who they want, do what they want. Diversity is no longer a dream. Hate speech is no longer tolerated. And politically, we're reclaiming the moral high ground.
James, I think I love you. Literacy, James. James, the average high school graduate reads at a 6th grade level. You have basketball players making $30 million a year decrying racism, all while wearing sneakers made from slave labor. Now, here's something for you. Right now, your world currently has 40 million slaves, more than the Romans had at the height of their empire. You want to know the best part, though? Half of those, half, are sex slaves, James. As for hate speech, well, you want to hear some irony? We didn't even come up with that one. You did it all by yourself. Sometimes you amaze even us.
I fail to see the humor.
Bottom line is you're done. It's over, that's it. And we did it all right to your face, James. And now there's evil everywhere. And no one even cares.
Yeah, I don't agree.
Proving that we achieved our goal. Slowly, with your movies, your TV, and your media, we desensitized you, redirected your worldview to the point that you can't even recognize evil when it's right in front of your face. More to the point, James, you can't even feel it when you're doing it. And as for winners and losers, well, that gets decided at the time of death. The exact numbers are a closely guarded secret, but there are more of you ending up in my master's house than with the enemy. A lot more, Jimmy.
So I wanted to show you guys that because, one, I think it's an accurate depiction of demonic possession and what that's like and the influence. And also, it made me reflect on where do I believe the centers or the epicenters of the spiritual warfare are taking place in physical space and time, right? So we've talked about the logismy, we've talked about the imagination, we've talked about the tempestuous thoughts, but where in physical reality is the demonic warfare happening? And I wrote down 7 areas where I believe are arenas of spiritual warfare, whether people are conscious of it or not. Some of them are going to be obvious to you guys, maybe others not. I'm not sure. Number 1, though, I put down is the public digital sphere, social media. Why would I say that? Number 1, because it's imaginative, and it's saturated in emotion. It's a disconnection. It's a digital disconnection from physical human interaction, right? And so through memes, through videos, through the mimetic virality of images, people become emotionally charged to ideas and sentiments and beliefs. And it becomes an echo chamber in which people then are foisted into a small little niche community like the furries, where they converse with each other and it becomes normalized and they think it's real, all this fantasy that they live in. And the algorithms then perpetuate this fantasy, right? So if you're a furry, I would suppose, I wouldn't know, but your algorithm feeds you all this nonsense that keeps you exactly in the same place. And so the digital public sphere, I believe, is the number 1 battlefield in which the spiritual warfare is taking place. And we can see it when we go on X. You can see how people lash out. You can see just with Charlie Kirk and just with Arena or the shooting at the Annunciation Catholic School, how the virality of these images in the digital sphere can galvanize people, also separate and cause division amongst people. But it then, based on your reaction, the digital landscape then concocts this fantasy tumbleweed in which you, through the algorithm, are conditioned to maintain. You never have to change your opinion. You never have to face with reality. And so the digital sphere is like the perfect place to keep people in this prelest, to legitimate the logismy within people's minds. It's the digital sphere is where the demons are sort of externalizing the internal temptations they're offering people, so that they stay exactly where they want them to be. Number 2, the battlefields is, I would say, the cultural industries and art. And why do I say that? Well, I believe that there's a sort of, I framed it as an aesthetic catechesis. Aesthetic, meaning the way things look, the sort of superficial appearance of something. That there's an aesthetic catechesis that's happening through Hollywood, through music. I mean, we see it in the rap music. It's an aesthetic catechesis. There's an aesthetic to, oh, what does it mean to be a rapper? I got to dress this way. I got to talk this way. I rap about this type of violence, these type of activities. And some of these guys didn't do any of that stuff. Some of these guys, like rappers, actually came from like wealthy families. Why do they then brag and rap about money and violence? There's an aesthetic. There's a catechesis. They've gone through a sort of spiritual catechesis so that they embody the sentiments. So they actually bring more people into the same sentiment. And so it teaches values to the masses. That's what I was saying earlier with the film industry. That's exactly what it does. This is the way in which the majority of people are actually educated, because most people aren't reading, and most people aren't reading news. So they watch things, and through movies, through Netflix, through TV series, through the media, people then become conditioned through this catechesis, and the NPC demonic possession process begins. Number 3, obvious, is education. Education, I argue, officializes worldviews. So anybody who's gone through the education system, like me trying to get my PhD, they officialize what you're allowed to believe. So believing in a traditional Christianity that takes literally what happens, what is described in Scripture, takes literally the incarnation of God, takes literally that homosexuality is a sin. Well, that's an antiquated worldview. Education, the academy, try to delegitimate worldviews and then officialize and legitimize certain other worldviews. And so then through education, they offer you, you can be this, you can be a communist, you can be a capitalistic progressive, you can be they offer you different things. But what's unspoken is the worldviews that they delegitimize, that they de-officialize as, oh, no, that's not an official, you can't do that anymore. That's antiquated. That's antiquated. Number 4 is urban violence and communal breakdown. You know, this is something that needs to be addressed, but the Black community will not speak about their own internal problems. I mean, a handful of people do online, but the demonic spirit wants them to scapegoat all their problems onto the white man, onto the historical legacy of racism, onto chattel slavery that was, you know, over a century ago. That somehow that's the reason why a 30-year-old male in 2025 isn't as effective or successful in society as they could be. No, that's a scapegoating. That's a failure to take responsibility. That's a failure of maturation, and that's going to keep you in the position you want. And so you scapegoat your emotions through actions. You know, the Summer of Love, 2020, burning down cities for what? A felon criminal who was high on drugs trying to use counterfeit money. And he was put in a legitimate position in which people try to subdue criminals. And yet he was galvanized and celebrated as a saint. That is a spiritual problem within the Black community. And it's tied with the lies. It's tied with the actions of sin. It's tied with the cultural ineptitude that has really occurred since, it's hard to put your finger in, but I think an easy place is the welfare state of 1964. And so trauma and violence within these communities is a gateway for demonic possession. This is a known thing, that trauma, intense trauma, is a psychological gateway for demonic possession. And that's true for all of us. This is why, again, the church is a hospital. You're coming to become healed when you come to the Orthodox Church through the sacraments, through the mystery. And in that process, you're trying to provide closure to your trauma. Because if your trauma is still open and you're constantly reliving it and thinking about it, and allowing to influence your everyday activity, you're allowing space for demonic suggestion. And I would argue what we're seeing in the Black community is that the trauma of the ghetto in the communities that they exist in actually exacerbate the influence of demonic activity within them. And so it reorients in these communities, it reorients authority through predatory violence. In a true community that is not broken down, there is a hierarchy of authority, but it should be due through competence, through shared values, through a shared culture, a shared ethos. But what's happening in the Black community? We're seeing that the authority structure is based on predatory violence. Who has the biggest guns? Who has the willingness to kill? That's who's in charge. And that is a satanic inversion. That is what the devil would want. Number 5 is the political and legal sphere. I argue that the political and legal institutions in our country implicitly construct and validate cultural norms. So, for example, gay marriage wasn't even legal until 2014? So the cultural norm of homosexuality and homosexual marriage was very different before 2014. It was very different in the year 2000, just 25 years ago. Very, very different. But because of the political through legislation, and then the legal through the enacting of laws, now it's a cultural norm. Now you're a pariah if you say homosexuals shouldn't be married. It's an abomination to the institution of marriage. Well, now you're a pariah. You can't say that. Why can't I say that? Because it's been politically and legally validated. And that is a place where our spiritual warfare is occurring. We have to realize that all the institutions, this is when I think somebody asked, and I'll get to it, about where is the line for violence for us Christians? Well, one, if it's in defense of the innocent, it's absolutely justified. But my question to somebody who wants to be violent right now is to who? To where? The spiritual warfare that we're under is not just the trans community, although they're indicative of it. It's the institutions. It's all the institutions. That's why these institutions like Clemson or all these different universities are firing their professors for the lack of decorum and sensitivity to Charlie Kirk. But the entire institution is like that. Just a handful of outspoken lefty professors actually posted online their sentiments. But the entire institution of education, the entire institution of entertainment and art, the entire institution of our politics and our government are aiding and abetting the spiritual warfare because the people within these institutions are possessed to some degree or another. And so ideologies shape institutions from the inside. So we have to realize the ideologies, the lies, the worldviews, the brain rot that the demons cause upon people, these people then infiltrate the institutions. And whose will do you think is enacted? The Department of Education is to make sure you're never educated to question the official narrative. You know, our nutrition is there to make sure that you're perpetually sick so the big pharma can make money off you being decrepit and in bad health with all these different ailing problems. This is demonic. This is a system that is feasting and feeding off you. Just like, again, the Matrix is about, you know, this fictitious sort of Gnostic framework on transhumanism in these machines. But the analogy of the demons as the machines in the Matrix, that I think is useful. There is a feeding upon us right now. And it's happening all over the world. It's just, I'm, you know, relegating my discussion to America in the American context. But the political and the legal, as I said, they validate these cultural norms. So everything that's shifting in culture has to come through the political and the legal to then be ramified as part of our society. And that is a spiritual battle. It's a spiritual battle that these judges won't hold anybody accountable. It's a spiritual battle that these judges hold social justice over actual justice. I mean, the guy, De Carlos, the guy that killed Arena, he's already out of prison and he's in like this rehabilitation center that looks like a country club. It looks like a resort. He's already there. He's not even in prison right now. This is a failure of justice. This is a demonic system that rewards injustice. Injustice. If you're a judge that's doing social justice instead of justice, you'll get promoted. You'll get elevated. The politicians that lie to our face, they get elevated. Oh, wow. That was a great way you answered that question without ever having to answer it, to deal with all your political crimes and your affiliations and your AIPAC money and Zionism and Netanyahu and the blackmail they have on you. That was a great response. You're a great politician. Our politics are filled with people that are inspired by demonic influence for greed, for gluttony, for pride, for fame, for power. It's a house of cards. It's a house of cards built by the demons and the entire American structure. I mean, just right after Charlie Kirk, what was it? 200 some Congress people went to Israel. This is a captured nation. As I said, Zionism itself is a demonic influence. It's antichrist. It's an antichrist spirit. And the sixth battlefield that I have in regards to this spiritual warfare and where is it taking place in physical reality is the family and the domestic sphere. The breakdown of the family. When we look at my study guide for today's topic, like I have a whole thing. I was looking into divorce for children. I came up with 12 categories in which demonic spiritual warfare is taking place on innocent children in our society. I'll go over it with you in just a few. But the family and the domestic sphere, this is where people engage in real love. The love of your parents, the love of your father, which is huge, huge. How many studies have shown that a child who has a single parent actually does better with a father than a single mother? Not that there's anything wrong with single mothers. I mean, obviously it's better to have an intact nuclear family. But my point is the absence of fathers in specific within our society is a spiritual attack on children and on the generations coming up. And so the stable families There's multiple studies that argue this. Stable families with an intact nuclear family with two parents, biological parents that are still intact, that those children develop what they call strong moral imaginations or a strong conscience, a strong sense of right and wrong. But children who grow up in broken families, these are academic studies. This is not my opinion. They've shown that children that only grow up with one parent tend to have a weaker moral imagination, meaning they don't contemplate actions based on whether they're right or wrong. They don't think about the consequences of what they have to do, which is the role of a father. The father shows you that, yeah, you can make choices, but there's consequences to your choices. You're grounded. They take this away. This happens. Maybe you get spanking, something like that. But if you just have a mother and maybe she's not that strict, when do you realize that there's consequences to the things you say and the things you do? And that creates a demon for society. I'm not saying they're literally a demon, but you get my point about the demonic influence of children that would be operating that way. And so the absence of fathers create more susceptible children to demonic influence. That is a fact. That is a fact. The absence of fathers in American nuclear families makes the children brought up in those broken homes more susceptible. We know they're more susceptible to crime. That's proven. We know that they're more susceptible to drug addiction. That's proven. We know that they're more susceptible to sexual addictions, sexual fetishes. So without a father present, the children literally become more susceptible. Not in every case. It's not that there aren't great single mothers and single father. Of course there are. In general, statistically averaging out the numbers, the children become more susceptible to demonic influence. And number 7, and this is kind of obvious, the place in which the spiritual battlefield is taking place within physical three-dimensional, space-time reality is news and media, because it profits off driving the polarization of our country. So therefore, just like the black community has a communal breakdown, we as a nation have a communal breakdown. We don't even have a unified nation that even views the flag or what the nation's supposed to represent in the same light. And the media actually profits off the division, because getting back to number 1, the digital public sphere, making people emotionally charged and hate and anger being the number 1 gets people to respond. It gets people to click. It gets people to like or dislike or leave a comment, which the engagement through the fostering of anger, resentment, hatred, all of that then leads to the driving of our division and our polarization, meaning that we don't even have a full nation. We don't even have an intact nation. And then the spectacle formation. So because people are then watching all the news and every tragedy that happens, there's a spectacle formation in which it becomes normalized, and it becomes a desensitization in which people become, there's a voyeurism and a numbing that occurs through the constant consumption of the media. And so that's my argument, is that within the spiritual landscape, within the spiritual warfare that's occurring in you and me every day, I'm getting temptations. I'm getting intrusive thoughts. That's happening to every single person around the world. And then in addition, within America specifically, we have these battlefields of the digital public sphere, the cultural industries and the arts, education, academia, urban violence in their communal breakdown, family and the domestic sphere being broken up, the attack on the nuclear family, the political and the legal sphere, and of course, lastly, the news and the media. So that was my thoughts on trying to figure out what are the physical battlefields for this stuff. And that's what I came up with. So I'm going to come back to the study guide at the end here. So I'm going to actually continue through some of the clips in the videos that I wanted to show you guys. So first one, this is an oldie but a goodie. This is a video from 1965 Paul Harvey's broadcast on If I Were the Devil. Check it out.
If I were the devil, if I were the devil, if I were the prince of darkness, I'd want to engulf the whole world in darkness, and I'd have a third of its real estate and 4/5 of its population, but I wouldn't be happy until I had seized the ripest apple on the tree, thee. So I'd set about, however necessary, to take over the United States. I'd subvert the churches first. I'd begin with a campaign of whispers. With the wisdom of a serpent, I would whisper to you as I whispered to Eve, do as you please. To the young, I would whisper that the Bible is a myth. I would convince them that man created God instead of the other way around. I would confide that what's bad is good and what's good is square. And the old I would teach to pray after me, Our Father, which art in Washington. And then I'd get organized. I'd educate authors in how to make lurid literature exciting so that anything else would appear dull and uninteresting. I'd threaten TV with dirtier movies and vice versa. I'd peddle narcotics to whom I could. I'd sell alcohol to ladies and gentlemen of distinction. I'd tranquilize the rest with pills. If I were the devil, I'd soon have families at war with themselves, churches at war with themselves, and nations at war with themselves, until each in its turn was consumed. And with promises of higher ratings, I'd have mesmerizing media fanning the flames. If I were the devil, I would encourage schools to refine young intellects, but neglect to discipline emotions, just let those run wild. Until before you knew it, you'd have to have drug-sniffing dogs and metal detectors at every schoolhouse door. Within a decade, I'd have prisons overflowing. I'd have judges promoting pornography. Soon I could evict God from the courthouse, then from the schoolhouse, and then from the houses of Congress. And in his own churches, I would substitute psychology for religion and deify science. I would lure priests and pastors into misusing boys and girls and church money. If I were the devil, I'd make the symbol of Easter an egg and the symbol of Christmas a bottle. If I were the devil, I'd take from those who have and give to those who wanted until I had killed the incentive of the ambitious. And what'll you bet? I couldn't get whole states to promote gambling as the way to get rich. I would caution against extremes in hard work, in patriotism, in moral conduct. I would convince the young that marriage is old-fashioned, that swinging is more fun, that what you see on TV is the way to be. And thus I could undress you in public, and I could lure you into bed with diseases for which there is no cure. In other words, if I were the devil, I'd just keep right on doing what he's doing.
So the reason I wanted to play that is some of you guys may have already heard it before. It's kind of a classic, but that's from 1965. And part of my argument is that it's the 1960s counterculture, and you'll see it more in my study guide. We're going to go through some of the Charlie Kirk responses here, and all the tabs that I have on this one. But then we're going to go through my study guide, and then we'll listen to Father Paul Trubenbach talking about demonic possession and spiritual warfare from a Orthodox Christian perspective. But as you'll see when we go through the study guide, it is the 1960s that totally changed the cultural landscape of America and our cultural norms. Whether it be no-fault divorce in California, 1969, whether it be pornography, whether it be the sexual revolution, the normalization of homosexuality. I mean, you have Allen Ginsberg with the beatniks, and the beatniks really are the preceding generation before the hippies of the counterculture. The beatniks of Allen Ginsberg and Jack Kerouac and in others, that William S. Burroughs, that's who I was trying to think of. What are the commonalities? Well, William S. Burroughs killed a woman. He went to Peru to do ayahuasca. He's one of the first reported people to do ayahuasca. He had homosexual experiences. Allen Ginsberg was a pedophile. He was a homosexual. He was part of NAMBLA, the man-boy love. So it's from the 50s, but really then the 60s moving forward, when we look at the state of America, what I'm calling the devil's America, How did we get here? How did we get to the place where every institution is infiltrated, that every dimension of American life is actually in opposition to the values of Christ, to the promotion of life, for the promotion of family, to the promotion of virtue? How did we get here? This has been a societal possession, just like with Nefarious, just like with the instances I talked about with the logismy and how possession occurs. Our nation has been doing the exact same thing. And you can point, again, these endless wars. It's Vietnam in the 60s. It's Vietnam that sort of set the precedent for, oh, we just get involved in, all types of wars. Well, for what reason? Oh, we're fighting for democracy. Oh, really? For democracy. And this is the result of democracy. 2025 America, this is the result of democracy. I don't think I like it. I don't know if I want more of it. Seems like it's failing pretty spectacularly. So that's why I thought this video from 1965, excuse me, this video from 1965 is so prescient because it describes the society we live in now. And this is Paul Harvey talking about if he was the devil, he would just continue with where the country was going. And we now are here. We now are here. This was what, 60 years ago. 60 years ago is when he spoke those words. And in 60 years, the world that he warned about, that if he was the devil, this is what I do. This is the world that we live in. So moving forward here, I want to show you guys some clips. And this just has to do with some of the,
he's been one of the most,
since we're talking about like demonic possession, what I want and what I'm going to show you guys now are instances of people within the last couple weeks or within the last few days demonstrating that something is mentally disordered or spiritually disordered within these people, because they're exhibiting the symptoms of demonic possession. And for all the things that I mentioned earlier, which were desecration of the body. Look how many of these women have this cattle piercing. It's like a marker. Look at how many people have weird hair. Revulsion to innocence and holy things. Blasphemous speech about God. We're going to see some of that. People whose opinions are totally divorced from reality. We're about to see that. Irrationality enslaved to their passions. We're going to see that. Sexual fetishes, obsession with the occult, radical individualism, anti-human sentiments, insensitivity to traumatic events, and mental and spiritual illness. Check it out.
most divisive, especially divisive younger figures in this, who is constantly sort of pushing this sort of hate speech or.
And mind you, this was the day that Charlie Kirk was killed. I believe this guy's like Michael Dowd or something like that. He was fired by MSNBC. But the day, I mean, this is only like a couple hours after he was killed. And he's going on to say that essentially he deserved it because he spoke hate speech.
Sort of aimed at certain groups. And I always go back to hateful thoughts lead to hateful words, which then lead to hateful actions.
And remember in Nefarious, when the demon says, you want to hear the irony? Is we, the demons, didn't even come up with hate speech. That was all you guys. Talking about how humanity, through this demonic warfare, the spiritual warfare, has remade fallen man in the image of demons, venerating and worshiping his own will and his own desires. And that hate speech is just the way to sort of nullify the truth, nullify speech you don't like. And so I thought of that immediately. In Nefarious, he says, you guys came up with hate speech. Now, again, it's a movie. It's taking theatrical leaps and stuff like that, creative bounds. But here we have Michael Dowd saying, well, Charlie Kirk deserved to die because of hate speech. Irony, isn't it?
And I think that's the environment we're in, that people just, you can't stop with these sort of awful thoughts you have and then saying these awful words and not expect awful actions to take place.
Matt.
And that's the unfortunate environment we're in.
Charlie Kirk got shot and killed. How do you feel?
Happy. Goodbye.
Wow. Did you see that Charlie Kirk just got shot and killed?
That's good.
Wow. That's good. That's good that people are getting shot just off a political view.
Charlie Kirk gets shot and killed today. We're just getting people's opinions. How do you feel about that?
Girl, someone had to do it. And that's how I feel at this point in time. But
Yeah, I appreciate your honesty. I truly do. So you said someone had to do it.
yes. Try not to get all pulled up into that, but he was a misogynist. He was a disgusting person with disgusting beliefs.
And there are a lot of people that are like, no matter what side of politics.
Yeah, she definitely doesn't look like she's possessed by a demon. Again, the uglification of people. I think that's a huge one. But that girl just sitting here, I guarantee you, if you asked this girl right here, why did Charlie Kirk need to die? She would not be able to respond. And this is where you see this NPC dimension to the demonic possession. Is I saw multiple videos where most of the time, the one that I watched was specifically a guy asking, it was a black man asking black people what they thought about the Charlie Kirk. And these people would come up and say, oh my gosh, he was a racist. And he'd say, well, what did he say that was racist? And they had no idea. They just regurgitate what they're told, right? And I guarantee you she's the same way. If you asked her, well, why did somebody need to kill Charlie Kirk? Because he was hateful and he attacked trans people. How did he attack them? He just said truthful things. Well, he said hate speech, which is violence. So you condone physical violence for verbal violence, if you consider such thing as verbal violence. Like these people, they really don't even have authentic, unique opinions. They just regurgitate. It's just a playbook. The NPC demonic possession is a mindless operation.
Try not to get all pulled up into that, but he was a misogynist. He was a disgusting person with disgusting beliefs.
And there are a lot of people that are like, no matter what side of politics you're on, you should never celebrate something bad happening to someone. I, on the other hand, do cheer when bad things happen to bad people.
Charlie Kirk just got shot.
So here we have we have a trans, we have again, look at all the facial piercings. Does a person not look like they're possessed?
Well, breaking news, folks. Seems somebody just took a shot at one of the Fantafast's favorite 5-mile wide mouthpieces, Charles Chuckle Kirk.
In which a shooting like this happens.
Yeah, and again, I emphasize what you just emphasized. We don't know any of the full details of this. That we don't know if this was a supporter shooting their gun off in celebration, or so we have no idea.
Charlie Kirk is a divisive figure, polarizing, lightning rod.
What that last one was this moron on CNN right after the event, where you can literally, again, everybody, the video's going viral. Charlie Kirk got shot in the neck. And he goes, well, we don't know if a MAGA supporter just shot their gun off in celebration. What? How many events? First of all, bullets shot in celebration go up. They don't go across into somebody's neck. And two, on what instances has that ever happened at a TPUSA event? Like, it's just a moronic, negligent thing to say.
Whatever term you want to use, why?
Well, he's one of MAGA's most prominent voices online. He hosts a near daily podcast.
And then this is a video of a guy who appears to be celebrating. And according to the latest things, at least as of yesterday, that the FBI, Kash Patel and Dan Bongino have said, they have evidence that there was other people who knew about the shooting ahead of time, and that they're going to be looking at, I guess, Discord and some of these different communities. He apparently made a message after the killing on Discord, but it's believed, again, we don't have full information, that potentially some people present knew that the event was going to happen. And George Zinn, the old crazy left lunatic man who first claimed that he shot him, he appears to be a patsy. We don't know, but just for validation of my argument today about demonic possession, the guy's a radical leftist. He's argued with Kirk before. Well, and he was there at 9/11 in the Boston bombing, this George Zinn. He was arrested for claiming he shot Charlie Kirk, which he didn't. But I guess the FBI or whoever did investigation and found that he had child pornography on his computer. And so he's now rearrested and he's in jail facing charges of child pornography. So again, why is it so common that these trans people, that these, you know, the LGBTQ Skittles mafia, why is it so common that many of them have child porn on their computers?
We think that Charlie Kirk just got shot in the neck. Hey, ooh, ah, ooh.
Your celebration.
Cut the music. Cut the music. Get from the pink with the
I'm not saying she deserved it, but I'm saying God's timing is always right.
So which God do you worship if you've been trying to manifest Charlie Kirk dying and then he gets assassinated? You think that's the God of creation, or you may think maybe that's Satan?
Watch this video of the liberal left celebrating that abhorrent assassination of Charlie Kirk last night. These are the tolerant. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, I've never seen a video collaboration of right-wingers celebrating anything like this. Makes my skin crawl.
Yeah, they got Charlie Kirk, bro. I've never been happier.
Never believe the reason I'm smiling. And it has nothing to do with Charlie Kirk. Nothing to do with
The world's lost.
I would say pour one out for Kirky Boy, but I don't waste good beer on little bitches.
I haven't posted on TikTok in a long time, but I'm gonna now because rest in peace, Bozo.
Charlie Kirk just got put down like a fucking dog in Utah, and I could not be happier. Praise fucking be.
I do not, and I will not, ever feel bad when bad people get what the fuck they deserve.
Charlie Kirk got shot? That's awful. That's so sad. Hope he recovers well.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the state of the world. Somebody gets killed in cold blood for having a different opinion and debating with intelligence and eloquently. And this is the reaction. I think the world's lost. I have no more words.
The shootings, the killings in Minnesota.
Please watch this snippet of a live of a girl who is celebrating the horrendous things that happened today.
Notice the pride and how many people are like legitimately Skittles in all these videos. Again, going back to the demonic possession, it's very obvious.
Literally, boom, boom, boom. Can't you just breathe a breath of fresh air? Like, doesn't the air, doesn't the weight just feel lighter off of your shoulders? Can't believe it's 9:30. 2 p.m., 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This has been an all-day event. Don't you feel like the world was made just a bit of a safer place today? Hope Core, you evil fuck.
This is the type of person that is exactly what's wrong with this country.
He insulted your wife.
Yes.
He came down the escalator and called Mexicans rapists and murderers. He said, well, what do you think I should have done? I said, I think you should have punched him in the face and then gotten out of the race. You would have been a hero.
I'd like to punch him in the face. I said, if we were in high school, I'd take him behind the gym and beat the hell out of him.
So those are just clips of politicians. I will play a little bit of some exciting here. Here's a few more if you want to catch these. Degenerate.
How we're reacting to Charlie Kirk's death. Like, whoa, look at the left. We're
Again, we see the cattle piercing.
celebrating Charlie Kirk's death. I want to remind you guys how you reacted to Melissa Hortman's death. Melissa Hortman was shot in her own home. Her and her husband were shot in their own home.
And who on the right was celebrating that the Democratic politicians in Minnesota were shot in their home? That's terrible. Like who's endorsing that? I didn't see anybody when that happened. A bunch of right wingers endorsing it.
By Vance Belter. Walked in their home and shot and killed both of them and their dog too. And there was no thoughts and prayers for them. No words of condolence from anyone on the right. There were jokes. You guys made jokes about it, Nightmare on Wall Street, and spread tons of disinformation. Disinformation because it was intentional. More important to get the narrative out that Vance Belter was a Democrat. No, the fuck he wasn't. It was more important for people on the right to spin it.
Okay, well, here's something that'll lift your spirits. Here's all these leftists crying for getting fired.
I was just fired from my job. I was just fired from my job.
Say that again.
I was just fired from my job. Now I have nothing but this. I have nothing but this website. I have nothing anymore. I have nothing. I have nothing anymore. I have nothing anymore. I have nothing anymore. I have nothing anymore.
As you can see, the more you fuck around, the more you're going to find out.
So you think celebrating a man's death is funny? Well, guess what? People are
going to lead to this. No, I would have never fucking done that. But it seems like with my life.
Oh my gosh, she's crying. She has drawn her eyebrows on her face. It looks like she has a filter on. Here's the thing, though. Here's the amazing thing that these people equate getting fired from their job as the same thing as Charlie Kirk losing his life. It's amazing.
Life, no matter how hard I fucking try, I end up fucking shut up. But I know that everything happens for a fucking reason. And I may not know right now what that reason is, but eventually God will reveal that to me. I love helping addicts. I love helping people. This job stressed me the fuck out some days, but I didn't care because it was worth it because I was helping people. I have no idea what I'm going to do. My daughter is about to go to college, and I don't know now how I'm going to pay for that, but I know that I'll figure it out. And if you want to send this video to corporate content, if you work,
in an age where
It's a poster for a vigil tonight.
Yes.
For somebody that passed. It's not.
This is Office Depot not allowing somebody to print off a poster for Charlie Kirk for a vigil, saying it was too political. Of course, it's too lefty, looked like lesbian women, and they were fired by Office Depot.
It's
propaganda. I'm sorry. We don't put that here.
Alrighty. So, what's your name?
I'm print supervisor. I'm one of the managers.
Yes.
So, unfortunately,
So they say they don't print political propaganda. So this is somebody that passed away a couple years ago.
That's political propaganda, unfortunately. I'm
So
sorry.
this is for a prayer tonight, for a prayer vigil?
It's still propaganda, unfortunately.
what makes it propaganda?
Because he's a political figure, and I don't have to. Yeah.
Our general manager is going to be in on Monday. If you want to speak further on the subject,
about Charlie Kirk ended up on Turning Point UK's Twitter account. So I need to address this because it's all getting a little out of hand. Let me firstly state that I am no longer at the Petticoat Emporium. My stall has been removed. In the neck at his own debate rally. I try to avoid American politics if possible, but I've opened X to a bunch of little bitches crying and whinging about how political violence is never the answer. These people are gunning for politics that is inherently violent to its people. These people are...
Charlie Kirk was inherently violent, but these people, that's what I mean in regards to people whose opinions are totally divorced from reality. This is a sign of demonic possession, let alone the tattoo across her neck.
Gunning for politics that are inherently violent to a population, to marginalized people, to people who need access to healthcare. This is the same across the West. This isn't just the US. This is England too. I'm sick of this idea that you can't meet violence with violence. If somebody was smacking you in the face in the corner of a room over and over, you're going to hit them back. You have to. You're not getting out of that unless you do.
Who hit her in the face? Who shot someone in the neck? I'm curious.
People do not care if you live or die. They don't. As long as you can work for them and make them money, and once you're useless, they don't care. They want you to die. Why is there anyone condemning that? Fucking them all. Them all.
All right, y'all, quick pause.
Appropriate. This is a person that works in law enforcement. She's a 911 dispatcher. Well, she was. A lot of people on this app were making jokes about Charlie Kirk's assassination on social media. And today they are waking up, finding out that they have no jobs and they have been fired or laid off. Well, what did you think was going to happen? Just because you don't agree with what somebody says does not mean that you should be doing stuff like this.
I said some things in the day that he was shot. I said some things on Blue Sky and on Threads that I'm sorry, not sorry for, but I said them and I deleted them when it was requested that I do so by my employer. And then today on a weekend, I'm told that I am no longer employed at Microsoft. After 6 years, building the diversity, equity, and inclusion department from scratch.
I think this guy was actually a comedian who got lumped into he was mocking these people. He has a bunch of stuff where he pretends to be like a radical liberal. So I'm pretty sure that one was satire.
My job. I got called into the office yesterday. I kind of felt like something was off, but they called me in the office yesterday, and after I finished like half through the work, and told me that they could either fire me or I could put a resignation in, but that would look better. But they fired me, or they're getting rid of me because of my TikTok and the book post.
I got me fired on my job. I woke up and told myself the shit from the Charlie Kirk shit from yesterday. What the fuck? I'm not paying my rent. What the?
Reading the assassination of Charlie Kirk, DC writer
So anyways, you get the vibe there. That's a montage that goes on regarding. So I wanted to also address this. TMZ, the gossip news out of LA. They do a bunch of Hollywood stuff. They're very intrusive. Not exactly moral people. This was, what is it? Harvey. He's the Jewish guy who runs TMZ. He had to address the fact that you can hear people cheer seconds after it's been announced that Charlie Kirk was dead. Now they said, oh, this was because the people were actually watching a car chase. Well, turns out once people did the video forensics, the car chase was happening before Charlie was killed. And what they were reacting to on the car chase is while they were watching it, the announcer or the news program said, we have breaking news. Conservative political commentator Charlie Kirk has just been killed at a TPUSA event in Utah Valley University. And you can hear the people start to cheer. Why they're cheering is because the news on TMZ or on the LA news, they just made that announcement regarding the car chase. They start cheering when they hear that. And then Harvey here is trying to, Harvey Levine, he's trying to then figure out, is it real? Is it real? And then he says, oh, nobody was laughing because Charlie Kirk or they were watching. He obfuscated. He said, nobody was laughing because they were watching the Charlie Kirk assassination. They were watching a car chase. Yeah, they were watching a car chase, but they cheered when the news analyst said that Charlie Kirk was dead. And here's the video of it.
So my guess is we're going to see an image of this guy possibly in the next 20 minutes. The news conference is scheduled for 3 o'clock in Utah time, which is 2 o'clock Pacific.
And so you could just hear like a group of people right now begin cheering like in ecstasy.
5 o'clock Eastern. Janet, go.
You hear him clapping and cheering?
go to have somebody look at the Fox. Trump just posted that Charlie Kirk is dead.
All right, so is this ready to pull the trigger? We can get Trump cut in a second.
What did Trump say?
Yeah, who sent it?
So what did Trump say? Yeah, Trump just said he's dead. Yeah.
So again, it just shows you the soulless demonic spirit of these institutions that people would cheer for that. Here's another instance. This was going around today on X. We see a delusional, deranged transgender man here in this black dress harass a guy who's just like filming and asking general questions. Wasn't even engaging with this guy. Check it out.
He was pushing me, taking a water, and he threw it on me, shot snot out of his nose towards me, and was coughing on me. And he was taking his phone and he was blasting it in my ear.
Hey!
I told you not to do that.
Yeah, get out of here! Oh, don't touch me! Don't touch me,
Hey,
dude!
Nick.
Dude,
Hey.
do not touch me!
Hey,
don't
I'm not
touch me!
touching you. It's all on film, dude.
What the hell? I know. So is you hitting my phone, stupid.
You put it in my ear. I
Put it
told
in
you.
my ear,
I told you if you put it in my ear, I'm going to push it away because it was.
And I
hurting my
told
ear.
you if you did that, what would I do?
Take your hands off. Hey.
Assault.
Take your hands off.
You just need me in the balls.
No, I didn't. He assaulted me, and now my phone's God knows where. What are you gonna do about that?
What do you mean? What am I going to do about what?
Your boy threw my phone.
Well,
I had
he
my
said he's
hands-
got your phone.
She said
Okay.
she has my phone.
Okay.
Little tip for you. Anyway,
Hi.
that one's free. Next.
Hey,
one's
listen,
gonna
I'm
cost-
going back to. He was pushing me, taking a.
So again, trans violence. These people are deranged, demonically possessed. Here's a girl. We're not going to watch it, but she's from the University of North Georgia. Says that her required reading explains that Christians are white supremacist group. Now, again, the mind bending that you have to get to that point, given that Christianity is a Middle Eastern, Levant oriented religion, that there's numerous people that are Christians that aren't white, but somehow Christianity, well, what she's being educated, and she's talking about the book that it comes from, is a white supremacist group. Here is 1 month before Kirk's assassination in Utah. This cross-dressing man in Utah requested the death penalty for himself after confessing to murdering both his parents and attempting to murder his brother. The story received little media interest. Why? Because he's transgender. He's transgender, as you can see here. This was going around today. This is a black guy mocking the death of Charlie Kirk, as you'll see here. That was at Texas State University. Again, that's at a vigil. Now, why would people be drawn to a vigil? If people are praying and celebrating somebody, what draws another person there to mock them other than demonic inspiration? Here's a gentleman on CNN saying, white children don't deserve innocence. Talking Head decrees that white children should be indoctrinated to feel guilt about their skin color. Here's one that was going viral, that this Evan Loves Wharf, probably need to check his hard drive, says, so fascism, because Giga-based dad says my political views are whatever this is. And it just shows a white man with a pregnant white woman with 6 children around them. And so just having a white family is an incitement to violence because somehow that is equal to fascism. Here is a gay man who went to an Aurora. He's the Aurora Pride chairman. He loses his mind for people just promoting America and Charlie Kirk and stuff like that. We're not going to play the whole thing, but I just want you to show you guys how he acts.
And you will tolerate it. Yes, I do.
And he's telling them, you're going to tolerate essentially my homosexuality. So, I mean, look at the actions of this man.
Shit, fuck, cunt, slut, whore, bigot. Look, they can't touch me. It's called the First Amendment, and I have that right. That little old lady is participating.
And look, it's just a bunch of old women. They're just like Christian women.
The abuse of other human beings right now. That is not an American flag. That is an American flag. All the rest of this, Trump 24. No, it was not. Look at the Constitution. God is not named anywhere in it. Other dominus is a standard form statement. It has nothing to do. That was the norm.
Like, again, this man is triggered just because they're Christians. It brings the demons out.
I have people said it too. They all signed it. Fear of our Lord, because our whole family was started because he was fake. No, it was not. In 2024, Jesus Christ.
Look how cordial the woman with gray hair is and how he responds. Here's Australia talking about human sacrifice. They will pay up to $22,000 for aborting their babies after 20 weeks. That was in August of this year. Well done, Australia. Well done. Here's a woman, a black woman, just walking down the street and spits in the face of a mother who's walking a baby in a stroller. Look, just spits on this woman doing absolutely nothing besides walking with her child in a stroller. That is demonic activity. These are the people we're surrounded by in our country right now. This is demonic influence. That woman did absolutely nothing besides walk with a child. Here's a woman yelling at a child. Again, this was like some campus event or something. And these people were Christians. I think this was a pastor, and he was like doing kind of like sidewalk evangelical, evangelism, that type of thing. Watch how this woman in the green here, the white girl, gets in the face of the little girl, has nothing to do with it, and yells in her face. Appreciate the black woman says, "Whoa, that's not cool." The white girl, if you didn't see, she got in the face of the little girl and yells, "I don't give an F what your daddy." Again, that's what I don't know exactly what was said after that. He's doing some type of preaching, so something to do with what he said regarding Christ.
That is completely false.
And here is, again, we're talking about politics and politicians being absolute liars. Here's a perfect example of Pritzker over in Chicago, Illinois.
I have never called Republicans Nazis.
Everything that he has done has been tearing down constitutional democracy. And that's what happened in Nazi Germany. It doesn't take very long to tear apart a constitutional republic. Indeed, the Nazis did it in 53 days. And our democracy is almost as fragile. And we're seeing it right now. The dangers that we saw in Nazi Germany, especially in the earliest days of Nazi Germany, are the dangers that we need to react to now. If we don't, things will get much, much worse. And so we've got to raise alarm bells to everybody. It's a 5-alarm fire, everyone.
So again, just shows the level these people will lie. I mean, Pritzker says he's never called anybody a Nazi, and then there's video evidence of him literally doing exactly that. This was today. This is what I'm talking about regarding the spiritual warfare that's occurring within news and media. ABC, after we get the press conference of the local officials talking about the charges that Tyler Robinson has been indicted with and their attempt to seek the death penalty for his actions, ABC the first thing that they want to talk about is how very touching it is that he called his transgender lover my love. What? I mean, who takes that away from the press conference as the first thing? This is basically they're reporting right after the incident happened.
We have seen an alleged murder with such specific text messages about the alleged murder weapon, where it was hidden, how it was placed, what was on it, but also it was very touching in a way that I think many of us didn't expect. A very intimate portrait into this relationship.
It's very touching. Well, literally for the last, 5 days, they've been saying that he's a groiper, that he's right of center, saying anybody, I mean, just Destiny did it the other day on Pierce Morgan with Andrew and Jack Posobiec. He goes, oh no, this was a right winger. This was a right winger. And they're like, no, he had a transgender boyfriend. I mean, a man who thinks that he's going to be a woman. Who's delusional, mentally insane. And he's like, no, there's no evidence. Yeah, there's a lot of evidence for it. Like, we don't know what's fully behind this. We don't know about George Zinn possibly being a patsy. We don't know that there could be, when did authorities know? According to Dan Bongino, the FBI was made aware of a potential threat to Charlie Kirk, I guess, days before. We're told that multiple vehicles with out-of-state license plates went to his driveway or his house. They were in his driveway, went to his house a couple days before the event. Who were they? What were they? So there's still a lot of unanswered questions regarding all this stuff. But the first takeaway is how sweet and touching it is that he was speaking lovingly to his transgender boyfriend. What the hell?
Between the suspect's roommate and the suspect himself, with him repeatedly calling his roommate who was transitioning, calling him my love, and I want to protect you, my love. So it was this duality of someone who the attorney said not only jeopardized the life of Charlie Kirk and the crowd, but was doing it in front of children, which is one of the aggravating circumstances of this case. And on the other hand, he was, speaking so lovingly about his partner. So a very interesting and, as Pierre said, riveting press conference, David.
It was tough.
Oh, God. Give me a break. These people are so freaking pathetic. It's disgusting. I just want to welcome everybody who just came in from Jake Rattlesnake TV. God bless you all. Thank you so much, Jake, for dumping some of your audience over here. God bless you, brother. For anybody who's new, my name is Dr. David Patrick Carey. I run an Orthodox-oriented YouTube channel where we just talk about basically culture, philosophy, history of ideas from an Orthodox perspective. And today we're tackling spiritual warfare and talking a little bit about what it is and how it operates and how demonic possession actually occurs. So smash that like for everybody who's here. God bless you all. Really appreciate you guys joining in. I do want to make a few quick announcements. First one for, I kind of got lost in the sauce for the stream. I want to say that I got my proof copies of my new book, Return to Babylon from Adam to Antichrist. For those who don't know, this is going live this coming Monday. So not yesterday, but in 6 days, it will be live on Amazon. Return to Babylon from Adam to Antichrist. What this is talking about transhumanism as an alternative theory on deification in our post-secular world. And so really excited for those to go live. That again is this coming Monday, September 22nd. So thank you all so much for the support there. Also, if anybody is interested, again, this topic's kind of a heavy topic. We've talked a lot about different things today, but if anybody is interested in joining the Logos Academy, this is a men's only academy. So it's only open for men. But if you're interested in joining a men's only academy where we talk, literally it's an academy for philosophy, theology, again, cultural conversations. We're getting ready to do a think tank tomorrow night on women, relationships, feminism. So that's a private conversation held through Zoom. If you guys would like to join the Logos Academy, if you're a man, so this is not open to women, but if you're a man and you'd like to join the Logos Academy and kind of get access to our private discussions and a lot of our educational content, please join. I would really love to have anybody who's interested. Do know it's coming from an Orthodox perspective. That's the general ethos of what I do and what I promote. But if you guys are interested, please join the Logos Academy. Would love to have you guys. Also, if anybody is interested in sponsoring a stream, you can do so. You can do so with this link right here. I do sponsored streams on various topics. If anybody wants to sponsor a stream, you can do so with that link. And if anybody wants to set up a one-on-one session to hop into a private Zoom meeting, you can do so with this link right here. Okay, so let's catch up on a few of the super chats. Some people have sent some stuff in. Orthodox Boomer Grandma throws in $20. She says, thank you, DPH. We are almost out of Father Luke icons. We'll be coming back after Tiny House is done with 2 new iconographers by January, Lord willing. Well, excellent. Orthodox Boomer Grandma, thank you so much for the support. God bless you guys, and that's great to hear. Stephen throws in 10, says, thank you for the stream and all your preparations. Knowing the evil around us vindicates Christ and the good. So thank you. Absolutely. Absolutely. Today's stream, and I still have a few more things I want to discuss with you guys about spiritual warfare and demonic possession and how the process occurs and really the landscape, the spiritual landscape of America. But I've hoped you guys have found this edifying, and the goal is to inspire, to instill, to strengthen. And so becoming more conscious and aware of the demonic activity all around us is not something that should diminish your faith or cause fear or despair. It's actually a time for us to grow and become better. So thank you so much, Stephen. Really appreciate it. Ed throws in 5, says, and at what point is violence justified? It's been hard not to think about the Crusades lately. Well, I think, obviously the Crusades came at a historical period. I'm not a fan of the Fourth Crusade. That's for a fact. Fourth Crusade is an abomination. It's an abomination of Christian history. But other than that, like I said earlier, the difference between the Crusades and where we're at in America right now is who are you going to crusade against in America? Obviously there's the trans community, there's the LGBTQ mafia, there's like leftist NGOs and organizations, but it's the institutions. It's the people that occupy the institutions. And yeah, we watched a compilation of people complaining about getting fired based on their comments of Charlie Kirk. But I mean, what is that? Maybe 1,000 people? I mean, that's not enough. We're talking about millions and millions of people in this country have bought into the lies of the evil one. They believe in a total false narrative. They think that men can become women. They think that physical violence is okay for having a difference of opinion about, homosexuality or marriage or economics. These people are driven and inspired by demons. Now, who do you crusade against? It's the entire institution. I feel like we're in a different historical predicament than, say, Catholic Western Europe wanting to reconquer the Holy Land. There's a clear adversary there. Islam, the powers and the power structure they had in the Levant, reconquering territory, reconquering the Holy Land. What does a crusade look like in America? We're a multicultural, multi-ethnic, globalist hodgepodge of people with half the country who hates the flag and hates the people who live here. How do you make peace with them? I generally don't know. Now, when is violence justified? In my opinion, as an Orthodox Christian, and one that will always be true, is in self-defense. So if somebody's breaking into your house, killing somebody in protection of your wife and children is always justified. If you're out and about in DeCarlos, who's going to stab Irina on the bus in Charlotte, if you stop that and maybe you subdue him or even use his weapon on him, I think that's justified. If somebody's causing violence to other people, I think that's justified. The real tricky question when it comes from a moral standpoint is, when is the aggression of violence justified? That's a harder one to pin down. That's a much harder one to pin down. And I don't even know how physical violence, how would it be used in the circumstance we find ourselves right now in contemporary America? I'm not sure. Clearly, Christians have to be stronger and more vocal and more outspoken and more defiant in their beliefs. I do think that what's going to happen is more and more people are going to become Orthodox. We just saw the was it cleaving to antiquity or something like that? He was a Protestant pastor, just converted to Orthodoxy. He was on Father Peter Here's Orthodox Ethos channel. You know, I think more and more of this is going to happen because people need something strong. People need something historical. But I'm not sure when violence is justified outside self-defense in the context we find ourselves, Ed. Mr. Fista throws in 10. Thank you so much, brother. Timothy Dexter throws in 5. Thank you so much. God bless. 253 Monty became a new COTEL crew member. Thank you so much, brother, for supporting the stream. Rebel Umbreon throws in 10, says, these are the same people that unironically try to argue that the demons in Warhammer 40K and the bugs and Starship Troopers are the good guys. The worst part is our media activity pander to them. Yeah. Well, it's because, again, the media is the extension of the father of lies. These people believe lies. These people are inspired by demonic activity. Of course, it's going to be efficacious on them. And of course, they're always going to try to find people that look like them, like the bugs and Starship Troopers, to identify with. These people are, again, we've talked about the attack on aesthetics, the attack on beauty. These people are ugly inside and out. Taguch throws in 10. Thank you so much. Says, not one step back. These people are insane, but they are doubling down and exposing. Absolutely the case. That's why you got to become orthodox. Like, not one step back. What does it mean if you don't have anything to protect? If you at least have a family, you have that to not step back from, right? You stand on the front lines of defense for your family, but outside your family, what do you have? America, democracy? No, you got to have a church. You got to have a faith. You got to have something transcendent. And I think without the Orthodox Church, or without, really being tied to the Christian faith, it's going to be hard not to take one step back because the pressure of this world is going to be on you. So I totally agree to Gooch that not one step back. We as Christian men have to be very vocal and militant in our faith. We need to be the church militant. And to Gooch became a COTEL crew member. Thank you so much, brother. God bless you. Really appreciate the support. Austin DeTulio throws in 5, says 16 minutes to reach the goal. Well, thank you so much, Austin. God bless you, brother. Appreciate the support. Our sister, Kristen Slowboy Whiteboard, COTEL crew member for 30 months. Thank you so much, sister. She says, Father Josiah Trinum on Tucker starting now. Thanks for the awesome stream, brother. God bless you and your family. Well, thank you so much, Kristen. God bless you as well. To Gooch throws another 10. Thank you so much, brother. He says, for the goal, let's go, chat. Well, thank you so much, brother. Really appreciate you supporting the stream. Monty throws in 10, says, thanks for the stream. Thank you so much, Monty. To Gooch throws in another 10, RIP Charlie Kirk. So true. Thank you so much, brother, for the support. Red Fox throws in 20, says, nothing but compassion for Kirk's family and friends. These demons really have been coming out. How do we get a signed copy of your book? I will make that available. Once it comes out Monday, I'm going to figure out a way on the website, add an option where you can. So here's the hardback. And then we got the paperback, and there will be a Kindle version, but for paper and hardback, I'm going to buy a handful of copies of my book. And so people can purchase it through my website, and I'll have signed copies and personal notes of whatever you guys want me to write in there. So thank you so much, Red Fox. That should be available next week. Angel Berber says, DPH, you and Jay Dyer, the best Orthodox apologetic debaters in the space. God bless the Harry family. Well, thank you so much, Angel Berber. Really appreciate that. Do appreciate the kind words. Yeah. So thank you so much, brother. Appreciate you being a COTEL crew member for 15 months. William throws in 10, says, please pray for me, a recent convert in a lib city. Ooh, God bless you, brother. Red Fox throws in another 10 and says, hey, brother, I'm getting a 404 error code on your membership page on Chrome and Safari. Yeah, if you're going through my website, you're going to get that. You have to go through the Logos Academy. So the Logos Academy is where we're doing all the education. That is the new membership place. Again, it's a men's only community for masculine formation and education, theology, stuff like that. So Red Fox, click the link. I just shared it in the chat. Click that link and you can join there. And then Mr. Fista throws in another 5. Thank you so much, Mr. Fista. And HK throws in 10, says, first stream, glad I'm here. Well, thank you so much, HK. God bless you, bro. And let's see. We just need 4 more to reach the goal. 4 more to reach the goal. We're at 26. 30 super chats was the goal for today to try to help get me to DebateCon and then the Athens Jerusalem conference in Palm Coast, Florida with Dyer, Metropolitan Jonah, Father Deacon Dr. Ananias, and Father Vladimir. That's going to be a philosophical conference in Florida. Both of them in November. They're back-to-back weekends. So that's a lot of travel. If you guys can help me reach the goal, I'd greatly appreciate it. But God bless you all for being here. Average Redhead just became a COTEL crew member. Thank you so much, Average Redhead. Do appreciate it. Over on Dono Chat, we had a couple super chats come in. Observer throws in $20, says good stream or great stream. God bless. Well, thank you so much, Observer. Goyam Golem throws in 5, says, I once banged a white girl with one leg. I should have used my penis. Okay. Ted Kennedy's Tardy Doorman throws in 5, says, people who adhere to political correctness are, in my opinion, retarded. Yeah, I totally agree with you, brother. And then Sheet throws in 5, says, David, you Edomite, you blue-eyed devil, you cracker-ass, honky-ass, peckerwood, miracle whip on Wonder Bread, turkey sandwich eating. Jesus was black and you're going to hell, Whitey. Praise Farrakhan. Okay. Well, it sounds really sweet. It sounds like a really nice individual. I do appreciate your $5. Interesting way to spend $5 is to tell me I'm going to hell. But again, the demons are real, people. The demons are real. Rhino throws in 5 over on Streamlabs and says, synchronicity versus divine providence. Are these two impersonal versus personal, respectfully? Yeah, so that's a great way to think of it, Rhino, is that synchronicity comes from Jungian psychology, right? So Jung was the famous one talking about these unique instances in your life where essentially your interior monologue and intention sort of lines up with the casuistry of the external world. He called this a synchronicity. He thought maybe it had to do something with your conscious mind uniting with like the unconscious processes of reality, something to that sort. And yeah, that's very impersonal. It's a very impersonal way to understand casuistry and the phenomenon of quote unquote synchronicities. From a Christian perspective, we would call those divine providence. And it is personal because it is your personal will that is aligning with a transcendent divine will in these instances. And when you know these quote unquote coincidences or synchronicities are way more than they appear. This is a message. This is something that you've been praying about. This is something you've been dealing with or struggling with. And you know that this is answered in one way or another. So I would just say that's a great way to frame it, is that synchronicity and providence are pointing at the same phenomenon. Synchronicity is coming from the Jungian psychological school of thought, and it's very impersonal. And it has to do with their beliefs of like the deeper beddedness of the unconscious and stuff like that. Where providence, more simply defined, is your personal will uniting with the intentions of in the will of God. So yeah, so a great way to put that, Rhino. Austin DeTulio throws in $2. Thank you so much, Austin. Crucible Crusader, shout out to the Crucible crew, throws in $2. Thank you so much, brother. Eric Vigilant throws in $1.99. Thank you so much, Eric. Crucible Crusader throws in another $2. Thank you so much, brother. Really appreciate the support. And Eric Vigilant says, I swished it for $2. Angel Berber for 5 says, I apologize for not congratulating you on your ascension to Dr. Harry. I know it has been some time since you reached it, but belated congratulations. Thank you very much, Angel, for that. I do appreciate it. Yes, I finally achieved the long-awaited goal of the PhD, though it means very little in today's academic landscape, but I do appreciate that support, brother. Thank you. Pat Fussy throws in 5, says, greatly appreciate the stream, brother. God bless. Well, thank you very much, Pat Fussy. Vigo, the Trad Pathian, throws in 5, says, for the goal. Thank you very much, Vigo. God bless you. Marty throws in another 2, says, for the goal. Thank you so much, brother. Really appreciate it. Average Redhead says, I found you through Jay Dyer. Keep up the good work. Well, thank you so much, Average Redhead. I do appreciate that. And she or he gifted a COTEL Crew membership. So thank you so much. Gifted 1 COTEL Crew membership. God bless you. Ariel Jones throws in 2, says, just wanted to support you in your goal. Well, thank you so much, Ariel. I do appreciate that a lot. Thank you. And Nobody threw in $20 with no comment. Thank you so much, Nobody. And Crucible Crusader just became a COTEL Crew member. Thank you so much, Crucible Crusader, for your support today, man. Really appreciate that. I don't know if you're going to DebateCon, but I should be there with the Wilsons, Andrew and Rachel. I think Jake Rattlesnake's going to be there, Jim Bob and his wife. So whoever's going to be at DebateCon, I look forward to potentially meeting some of you guys in person. I'm not going to go over the whole study guide. I'm going to show you guys what's in it, but it's going to be posted over at the Logos Academy for those who are seeking more, deeper, more in-depth information. So I'm just going to show you guys what's in the study guide. It's a study guide for today's topic on spiritual warfare. I tend to put these, for anybody who's new to the YouTube channel, I tend to put these together for some of my streams that are topic specific so that people can kind of see some of the nuance that I was going through. So it covers what spiritual warfare is, talks about Ephesians 6:12, and then lays out the structure of demonic assault. We're talking about how the imagination is the battlefield, the foundational battlefield of spiritual warfare, and the tempestuous thoughts and passions that the demons implant in your mind. So this talks about the progression from initial suggestion to dialoguing with the internal thoughts, to consent to the thoughts or the passions, which leads to captivity and the actual enacting of whatever the temptation is, which leads to a full-blown passion, a repeated indulgence that crystallizes into a habit, enslaving the soul. So it kind of goes through modern manifestations of spiritual warfare in America, how the church teaches us to fight, the intensification of warfare, spiritual warfare in America, how possession works. So this goes through an orthodox understanding of possession, noetic harassment, this type of stuff, hallmarks of demonic influence, why possession appears to be intensifying in America. So the normalization of occultism, we talked about that, pornographic and violent entertainment, radical individualism and anti-humanity, drug epidemics, trauma, and atomization. We talked all about that earlier. Also, primary nodes of spiritual warfare. These were the 7 places that I argue are the physical battlefields for our spiritual warfare. Yes, spiritual warfare is spiritual, but they inhabit people. And where are those people then? And where is that battlefield taking place? First and foremost, I said the digital public sphere, social platforms, short form video algorithms, this type of thing. Essentially the mimetic culture. Because of the imaginative saturation, the logismy allows you to dive deeper into the demonic fantasies, the emotional cascades, the emotional fervor that then social media indoctrinates into people, the echo chambers that people live in through the algorithms, and then the anonymity and publicity for saying or speaking certain things. That is, I would argue, the number one place for the physical battlefield. Then you have the cultural industries like Hollywood. Again, we talked about the aesthetic catechesis, education, youth institutions, basically education in general, urban violence, communal breakdown, family and domestic sphere, and then the media, new ecosystem, spiritual warfare on the innocent. These are 12 areas where I think that innocent children in America are actually being bombarded with spiritual warfare. You guys can check all that out if you sign up to the Logos Academy. And then the Devil's America. This is where I start going into how America became the way that it is right now. So most people are not aware of sort of the cultural trajectory and things that change the spiritual and cultural landscape of America. And this attempts to sort of give you a step through basically from the beatniks in the 50s, Jack Kerouac, Allen Ginsberg, William Burroughs. Again, Allen Ginsberg, a homosexual, William Burroughs, bisexual. All this stuff was the promotion of drugs, magic, the movement away from Christianity, get the 1960s counterculture, and all this different stuff. And then I have a list. This is just a small list that I put together on Christian shootings. These are Christian schools that have been terrorized by gun violence just since 2006. These are a handful that I was able to find online. Some of it was very difficult to actually do research on, and these are churches that have been shot up. So that is that whole document, that whole study guide is available over at the Logos Academy. You just go click on the classroom section, click on study guide show notes, and then you'll be able to find it there. Oh, Wicked Wally. Ah, man, shout out to Wicked Wally. I love you, bro. He says, looking forward to introducing you to my fiance at DebateCon. Celebrated leaving night shift by taking her to her first liturgy on Sunday. Well, glory to God, Wicked Wally. Can't wait to see you again, brother, and hang out. You were so much fun to hang out with during our trip to the Metallica concert in Nashville with Andrew and Rachel Wilson. So thank you so much, Wicked Wally, for the support. And I can't wait to meet your lovely fiance. I'm looking forward to it. All right. So now, last thing I want to leave you guys with is a video by Father Paul Trubenbach talking about spiritual warfare and demonic possession from an Orthodox Christian perspective. And so I'm going to play that video. And we're going to kind of listen to what a priest, what a father, clergy has to say about the unseen world. And I'm going to speed it up just a little bit to 1.25, but I want you to guys hear how we look at this and how we look at the landscape of America from an Orthodox Christian perspective. So check this out.
Has to be constantly aware that the invisible world is always active. We're extremely cautious with everything, including ourselves. We recognize that any thought or impulse we have may be from God, but it also may just be psychological from us, or it may be from the demons. And we have to recognize in all humility that we probably don't have the discernment to distinguish one from another. Oh, you know, the great saints and elders have that discernment. When we don't have that discernment, we tend to be pretty distrustful of ourselves, which is why we go to our spiritual father. But we are ever aware of the demonic world around us. At the same time, we're not hyper-focused on it. We don't become obsessed with it. We don't give more attention than it's due. And I think this is what spiritually one of the dangers that people make is that when they do have something happening in their spiritual life that they feel is demonic, sometimes if you begin to really worry about it and give it more focus than it's due, you actually strengthen it. You know, for instance, people are sometimes surprised when they have what are their logis me? What are these random thoughts that comes up that's particularly kind of crazy? You know, I'm driving down the road and out of the blue, I have a thought with my kids in the back of the car to jerk the wheel and careen my car off the road and kill us all. And, you know, it's a fleeting thought. It's in and out. And I go, I've never had a thought like that before. What just happened? Well, if I give it hyper focus, I'm going to sit there and I'm going to strengthen it. I'm going to start worrying about it. I'm going to start giving it a power that it doesn't otherwise have. But if in those moments we can learn to say, I put my thoughts right back on Christ and just say, Lord, I know that thought was crazy. That didn't come from me. Clearly didn't come from you. Banish those thoughts from me and then go right back to your prayer life and your world of peace. You're going to be better off. I teach people all the time. I tell them one of the greatest spiritual tools I can give them is called the holy shrug. And the holy shrug is to take something that has happened and just say, yeah, okay, and go back to normal life. Because otherwise you give it way more credit than it's due. And if the thought isn't helping you, then why are you giving it attention in the first place? Don't let it live rent-free in your head. Go back to holy things and focus on those as much as possible. So the St. Porphyrios method is really the best. And that's to fight for Christ with your back to the demons, rather than trying to fight directly against the demons with your back to Christ. Having said all that, we do take the demonic very seriously. We're very cautious of it. And I've had experiences that have absolutely awakened me to not only how seriously we need to take the demonic, but also how much more power Christ has over the demonic.
What does demon possession mean? How do the Orthodox view, that concept?
I just want to make one comment. He was talking about the logismi. These are these tempestuous, demonic thoughts that is where the spiritual battlefield really resides, which is in your imagination, in your head. And it can be anything. He was using, extreme example like killing children, your family, you want to veer off the road. I think most people have had the experience if you're on a really high building or a mountaintop that you get this weird urge to like jump. But also on your day-to-day, guys, whatever you struggle with, could be pornography, lust, could be violence, revenge, anger, hatred, whatever it may be, drug addiction. When the image enters your mind, that is the beginning of the spiritual fight. and you can either give it consent, and that's what gives it more power, as he was speaking about. If you sit and reflect on the fact that you're filled with lust right now, you're going to become more lustful. You have to change and divert the thought. You have to get the thought out of your mind, and then the emotional and energetic response within the body will reside, and you can kind of go back to baseline again.
Yeah, Saint Silouan the Athonite, he gives a really clear explanation on this when he talks about how that possession really comes in different stages. When we hear the word possession, we tend to think of the Hollywood type of possession, where somebody has lost control of themselves because a demon is controlling them. This type of thing does happen. I know priests who have done exorcisms on people that were almost out of a Hollywood movie. I mean, literally people levitated off the ground from demonic power.
And that's something I spoke personally with an Orthodox priest who told me that he was present at an exorcism in which that happened. He was a priest. I think he was going through seminary, or he was newly just was just a priest, and he was at his new parish. But he was talking about a man was possessed. They brought him in, and the priest went to go perform an exorcism. And he said it was crazy. It was like a Hollywood film. And he said, dude, I swear to you, I watched his body levitate off the ground. And I'm like, what? Are you serious? He said, yes, I swear. I swear I saw that. And I was like, oh my gosh, this was an Orthodox priest I spoke to privately. And so what Father Paul is saying is this is not a unique phenomenon in regards, maybe a handful of people. This is something that is real, absolutely real.
People speaking in languages they didn't know, and some really horrific things. But this is very rare. This is very rare. The demons much more so want to make us not aware of them. They want to make us not think about the spiritual world at all and just become obsessed with this world, the comforts and pleasures therein. And so there are many lesser levels of possession that we all have to deal with. And what St. Silouan says is this. He says, if you love your enemies, this is a sign that grace is within you. But if you hate your enemies, it's a sign that a demon is within you instead. Well, there's a certain level of possession. So possession really goes in different stages. But this is why the Orthodox baptismal service begins with an exorcism. The very first thing we do is we stand in the back of the church, and the priest makes the sign of the cross and breathes on the candidates, and then does 3 prayers of exorcism. Saint Diadocos of Photikis says that what's happening in these prayers is that the nature of man is being restored. He says that before one is made a Christian, the demons and evil work from within the heart, and grace works from the outside, as if knocking on the door. But after baptism, and especially after these prayers, everything is reversed. Now grace naturally works from within, and the demons are the ones trying to attack from the outside. This is often why people after baptism experience much more difficult and violent demonic attacks.
And this is what I've told people, and this is now, and it's not true for everyone. So when I got brought into the Orthodox faith, I had this experience. Very difficult demonic warfare when I entered in the church. It was intense, very, very intense. And it even affected my spiritual father. I'm not going to go into details, but he felt the demonic attacks on him because he was my spiritual father, my godfather. I also, at my parish, we had another man who he was brought in the week before I was, and he had an ecstatic euphoric experience. And he was on cloud 9 for months after being brought into the Orthodox Church. So it's not everybody, it's not always the case, but for young men who lived a debaucherous life like I did in my 20s, for young men that come to the Orthodox faith who have gone on this journey that so many of us in our 30s have through our 20s, yeah, it's very common. It's very common. And the warfare may come through your family, may come through your parents or your siblings or your close friends or your girlfriend or your wife. It's very strange how the attacks, but once you have an eye, like, okay, I'm going to be brought in, I'm told that this thing happens, I'm going to keep my eyes out for it. You will see it happen. You will see yourself get attacked by the people around you. Weird circumstances. For example, one guy, he had a problem. You know, this is a gentleman I'm close to. He was brought in. he always struggled with anxiety. His anxiety came back, and he got into a serious car wreck the week of his baptism. Now you'd say, okay, that's just a coincidence. Well, maybe, but it's happened so frequently when young men come to the Orthodox Church, because this is what we say. Once you get brought in, we say, welcome to the arena, because that exorcism prayer that Father Paul was talking about also involves you turning around and spitting on Satan. Literally, that's in the ritual, is that you becoming an Orthodox Christian, you spit on Satan. And in that act, you are basically saying, game on, game on. And so, as Father Paul said, the grace moves from the outside to the inside, but the demonic attacks from the outside ramp up. And that's just a fact, but that's not something to shy away from, guys. I've talked with people like, oh, I want to be Orthodox, but I'm afraid that I might get spiritually. Dude, what? What? You're convinced that this is the historical church, but you don't want to convert because you're afraid temptations and spiritual warfare? Dude, it's going to happen either way. What are you talking about? Like, that is such a weak, pathetic mindset. We're talking about spiritual warfare. We're talking about demons. We're talking about attempts to destroy humanity and kill people. And you're worried that your problem with porn may ramp up. You may get tempted more because dude, that's pathetic. That's pathetic.
Their spiritual life is the demons are now trying to reclaim their territory. And this is exactly why Christ gives us an example after baptism of going into the desert to do what? To do battle with Satan. So we know that the demons are going to fight against us. So every Orthodox Christian, if you've been brought into the church, has experienced an exorcism on themselves. But you do get cases. You do get cases where exorcisms are done on people or places in which it's a much deeper, higher level of possession. And I will tell you, I haven't done an exorcism like that with a person, but I have been part of exorcisms of places that were absolutely covered with demonic energy, and the experience is utterly life-changing. The most extreme case that I was a part of, I won't give any details of the place, but I will say that this was out in a more deserted area, and it was a series of buildings. And it just so happened that there had been stories in this area for many, many years of people seeing and hearing things that sounded ghostly or something like that, and sounded demonic. And the particular year that I was there, the activity increased exponentially. I actually wasn't a priest yet, but we did call in a priest and asked him to look at this area, and he consulted with some people who were more familiar with exorcisms. And after hearing all the stories, he decided that we were going to do the exorcism service of the church, which is just some prayers of St. Basil and St. John Chrysostom, and do them in every single building of this area. I will tell you that before he came, being outside at night alone was terrifying. I myself experienced seeing someone in a distance staring at me, and as I walked closer, they completely disappeared. And I heard behind me footsteps when I was walking outside. And I will tell you that they were in the middle of the night, as clear as could be, the sound of footsteps right behind me. And then you turn around and you see nothing there. Very few things have taught me how to pray the Jesus prayer like that night. That was a terrifying night. And everyone who was there was experiencing things like this, hearing voices and other such things. What was incredible was, while that was terrifying, we saw the power of Christ, and we saw how much Christ has absolute power over the invisible world. What happened was we did the exorcism prayers for hours. It took hours to go from building to building and do them in every single one. But the next day we had an interesting situation. The night after these exorcism services, some of us were out at night, and we noticed there was a palpable difference. And some people may think this was simply psychological, but I'll tell you it wasn't. Being outside felt peaceful. You wanted to sleep outside under the stars. It just felt completely different. And of course, even we were wondering, is this just psychological? It certainly didn't feel psychological. It felt like this was an otherworldly peace that had entered this area. And then the next morning, something really fascinating happened. Even though this was kind of a secluded area out in the wilderness, we never considered the fact that we rarely ever saw animals around that area. But the morning after the exorcisms, it was like a Disney movie. Deer, owls, rabbits, all over the place. as if nature itself recognized that demonic energy was gone, and they all flooded there. It was one of the most incredible things I've ever experienced. And again, the lesson for me was not to fear the demonic as much as it was as to stick close to Christ, because Christ's power over the demonic was so incredibly palpable. It was an unforgettable experience.
What type of things open us up to the demonic? What are things that we should avoid, you know, in our day-to-day lives that we might not be aware of, that are actually might open up doors for demons to enter into our lives?
Just don't sin, and you don't have to worry about it. It's simple. obviously, you know, whenever we sin, we align ourselves. This is kind of what salvation will be. Is one of the ways of looking at salvation is have we aligned ourselves more with the angels or the demons? You know, they're going to argue about what do our souls look like? Do they look more demonic or more angelic? And so, I mean, really, just struggling in the spiritual life for Christ and constantly seeking His grace and His forgiveness is a protection in and of itself. It's also wise to stay away from any spiritual practices that are not orthodox, especially those that participate in the occult. Some people make light of these things, and they don't actually think they're participating in them, the Ouija board and things like that. But even in other areas, becoming obsessed with horror movies and those types of things. In the vast majority of cases, are you going to see, you know, direct and overt possessions after these? No, probably not. But we do acclimate ourselves to evil in that sense. To be entertained by evil is a really, really odd thing. To be entertained by watching somebody go around and kill people is odd. And to be entertained by some of the demonic movies is odd. So I had a man in my first parish come up to me right as I was about to begin Orthros one Sunday. And he asked me, do you Orthodox do exorcisms? Now, whenever somebody asks you that, you know, there's a story behind it. So I said, tell me what happened. I said, I have to start the service in about 5 minutes. So I don't have a lot of time, but tell me what happened. He said that he thought it would be funny to take some occult imagery and to make on Halloween a fake casket with a rope and to drag it around town. And just to kind of mock some of the Christian beliefs about death and the demonic and things like that. And he said ever since he had done that, he had felt a presence behind him, and that he was waking up in the middle of the night with scratches on his body, hearing growling. And at one point he woke up and he saw a dark figure above him with this hot breath right on his face. And he said no matter what he had done, he couldn't get rid of it. This was about 3 weeks after Halloween. And he said he really regretted what he had done. I told him, listen, I don't have a lot of time right now. And I was a very new priest. I needed to kind of consult at that time. But I said, I need to go start the service. But here's what I want you to do. I want you to stay. And if you can't stay right now, come back for liturgy. Come back for the divine liturgy. And afterwards, I promise you we'll talk. Unfortunately, he never showed up again. He left and didn't come back. I have no idea what happened to him to this day. But that is one of many cases I've seen of people who have dabbled with mocking the demonic or dabbling in occultism and having significant problems afterwards.
What about things that might seem harmless, like listening to secular music, rap music, you know, where a lot of the themes that are being talked about in the music is like killing, but you know, some people rationalize it and like, well, I'm not thinking about those things. I just like the energy of the song and I like how it makes me feel.
Yeah.
What about things like that?
Yeah, I remember growing up, I was into rock and alternative, and I remember somebody once calling rock demonic, and I laughed, and I said, it's just utterly ridiculous. This is not demonic music. They're not talking about demons. They're not worshiping demons. There's no demonic imagery in the bands that I was following. But as I grew older and hopefully matured a bit, I started to see that when we say that things are demonic, we don't necessarily mean demonic in the overt sense. What we mean is that there's something about this that displays a demonic energy. It's kind of interesting. I would listen to some of that music, and I would notice that I would be an angrier person after listening to it. Or sometimes I would just be more secular. I would have a looser sense of morals. So these things do get into us, and we have to believe that. We have to believe that what enters the body in the senses doesn't then just pass through and leave us without leaving its mark. Everything we consume in that sense leaves some sort of fingerprint. And the fingerprint of secularism itself may not be, again, overtly demonic, but does it lend itself towards a more secular perspective, which means less Christ-centered? Yes. And is that not in itself a form of being demonic? So again, this is not necessarily going to lead us to demon worship, and I think that's what a lot of people assume, but it does actually acclimate ourselves to an anti-Christian worldview. And so we need to be cautious about those things. Now, having said that, pastorally, when somebody says, do I just need to get rid of all these aspects of my life? I take my kids to movies sometimes, rarely. There's not many movies that are worthwhile these days, but maybe once a year I take them to a movie. So I'm not saying that everything in your life needs to be religiously based in every sense. I think if people who jump in too hard, too fast with that, they can't take it anymore, and eventually they just leave and say, this was too tough for me. So things like, video games, movies, music, I tell people what they need to do is they need to start weaning themselves off of those things until the attraction leaves. If you're going to play video games, maybe you're playing 8 hours a day. Why don't you try playing 7.5 hours a day and then spending that other half hour praying? And then set a timer after you've gotten used to that and say, okay, let's make it 7 and pray for half an hour, maybe 40 minutes now, and keep weaning yourself down. I think it's the same thing with music, with TV. As much as I argue that people shouldn't live their spiritual life like a checklist, I think having a checklist is actually a really good thing on a daily basis. And part of my checklist, there are things that I want to watch. There are things I may want to listen to that may not be directly related to my faith. But those things get placed under other spiritual tasks, such that if I have not done my prayers, if I have not done my spiritual reading, if I haven't done my prostrations, if I haven't done whatever it is, then I don't get. So it's like a reward system for me. So I never try to prioritize the secular over the spiritual. I always try to prioritize the secular over the spiritual over the secular. That takes time. And so we need to wean ourselves in that regard. When I did that with myself, with music, because even when I was a priest, I still liked listening to a lot of that music that I used to enjoy. What I did is I made a rule for myself. I'm going to pray the Jesus prayer in the car for however long, depending on the drive, and then I can listen to what I want. Over time, I increased that time of prayer. Now, I can't tell you how much I look forward to that peace and silence. I don't like the radio on in the car. I like that time for prayer. I covet it. I look forward to it. It's one of the few times I have utter quiet in my life. And so every now and then I go, I kind of miss listening to this song. I might put it on, but it doesn't fill me anymore. I find that the spiritual life is so much more fulfilling. It's like having a choice between like a choice steak perfectly cooked and having a little bowl of cheap ground beef from Taco Bell or something. Maybe every now and then I go, oh man, I kind of miss Taco Bell, and I take a couple spoonfuls and then I go, I really want the beef again. I want the steak. I want to go right back to the steak. And this is how the spiritual life is. So we have to learn to fall in love, and that it doesn't take effort. It takes a relearning about what the heart is really yearning for. And when you do, you kind of stay away from those things a little bit more. But if we delve too much into the video games, the pop culture, the music and stuff, without realizing it, it leaves its imprint on our heart, and it does open us to taking things less seriously. And I think that was how I was when I was young, going full circle when somebody called the music demonic, and that's why I laughed about it. I don't laugh about it anymore.
How much does intent play a role in our worship? So what I mean by that, can we unknowingly worship a demon perhaps? Or maybe a lot of us participate in what might be demonic unknowingly, like drinking products that have satanic symbolism on it, like a Monster can. Or I remember, just to give you an example, I was a big anime fan growing up, and one of the symbols in the anime that I liked, I didn't know it at the time, but it was actually a 666. But the way it was presented, I didn't make the connection until one of my mom's coworkers, she saw it and she's like, she like gasped and she's like, why are you satanic? And I'm like, what do you mean? This is from my favorite show. So like, we can do things that in which we participate in the demonic, but can we unknowingly worship the demons? Is that something that can happen?
I'll have to speculate a little bit on my answer here. I would be really curious to find out what some of the holy figures I know would say about this. I definitely defer to them over what I say, but The first thing I'd say is we need a lot of balance. We don't want to become too fundamentalist with this, so that we see the demonic everywhere and we get hyped up on it. We get overexcited about it. We need to be sober-minded about this. We need to be even-handed in things, and we need to make sure that whatever we're doing with a lot of discernment. At the same time, anything that promotes, even in underhanded ways, the demonic, for us is not something we would want to support in the first place. And if they're putting demonic symbols on things in hidden ways, we have to ask what the intent of the creator was in the first place. And we have to be willing to look at that and say, okay, this is, as much as I may enjoy this, this is not a difficult sacrifice for me. I can put this stuff away because clearly the creators have an intent that runs against my Christian faith and is working against Christ. As for this question, really interesting question of can we unintentionally worship? I suspect that I would answer by saying we can unintentionally participate in worship. I don't know if it's the same thing as directly worshiping, but we can participate in that which appears to be and maybe has connection to worship. So first we have to ask the question, what is worship? I typically define worship as seeking to become like the object of our worship in the first place. But there's more to it than that. Worship necessitates some sort of sacrifice. Now, whenever we consume media, we are sacrificing time and money for those things. And so there is a bit of sacrifice involved in these things. And it may not be consciously thought of it in such a way, but there is a bit of sacrifice. And if in participating in these things or consuming them, we are constraining our thoughts, if we find that we're thinking about these things when we're not doing them, especially if they're interfering with our own prayer life, we've clearly caused a distortion to our worship of Christ in the first place. So to me, it seems like we are actually unwittingly participating in some sort of worship. And even if it's not completely intentional, we are intentionally consuming or participating in these things, even if we didn't recognize it as worship. And that's why the Christian needs to be very consciously aware of what he's doing, and how things affect him. And again, that goes back to something we've already discussed, but it goes back to the idea that the more we acclimate ourselves and resonate ourselves with the life of grace, the more we're going to begin noticing when things are out of sync with that resonance. And that is something that is necessary in the Christian life. The only way that you're going to resonate more with true grace, though, is to keep inviting grace in through prayer. And this is why prayer life needs to be the main work. This is the main work and main focus of the Christian.
So I thought that was an important discussion from Father on the unseen world, demonic possession, and essentially the spiritual warfare that we're all up against. So, I mean, that's going to conclude most of my stream today. I got a few super chats I need to address, but the point of today's stream, the overall message is that we have to realize what's happening. Again, Charlie Kirk, Irina Zarutska, the Annunciation Catholic school shooting, the Covenant school shooting in Tennessee, that persecution of Christians and physical violence is going to increase. We're at a tipping point right now in our culture, and the war on Christ and the war on white people who are, again, just because of history associated with Christianity, is going to increase. The demons are going to become more active. The only way that we can protect ourselves is through that spiritual resonance that Father Paul talked about with Christ, becoming more like Christ. And so America as a nation, as I talked about with abortion and Hollywood, the military-industrial complex, unaffordable living, government lies, transgenderism, rising crime, social justice instead of actual justice, and of course, Zionism. These are demonic features of our nation, and one of the reasons why there is a sort of possession of America right now. It is a sort of abode of demons. And this is why we need to become more conscious and deliberate in our actions and be prepared for what's going to come in the future. Because we're not going to vote our way out of this. And I don't think anybody watching this channel thinks that's going to happen anyways. But this is an important topic, and this is all very, very real. And I think spiritual warfare, that phrase is used a lot, but getting into the nitty gritty of how this warfare occurs, I think is a conversation a lot of people don't have and don't really dive into. So smash that like. Thank you all so much for being here. Candace Mack throws in 10, says, my husband and I live in a very safe country that is great for our children, but has no Orthodox churches. Considering moving back to the U.S., but the current climate is daunting. Any advice? Yeah, so it's hard to be an Orthodox Christian without a Christian church. So I don't know what country you're in. I don't know your guys' family situation. I will say that to be an Orthodox Christian, you have to have a Christian church. That's the only way you can get baptized, the only way you can be brought in. That's the only way you can participate in the liturgy and the Eucharist. So if it's something very serious for you guys and you take spiritual warfare seriously, yeah, I think it's something you should consider is moving somewhere where you'll have access to an Orthodox community. That's to me just a no-brainer. Obviously, your family situation is going to be unique and come with certain contexts that I'm not aware of. Regarding the current climate in America as being daunting, I wouldn't let that affect you. I think the current climate, I mean, pick a Western nation. Where would you go? I mean, think of any nation that was historically Christian, whether it be Catholic, Orthodox, or Protestant. I mean, outside of Eastern Europe, parts of Eastern Europe, Russia, Hungary, Poland, maybe. But if you're not those things, that's going to be a difficult move for the family. I think there's still great places to be in the United States. You just have to be conscious about your community and where you're going to move. I mean, you need to look at demographics. You need to look at Orthodox churches. You need to look at different communities. But I don't think you're really safe anywhere. Everywhere has its own problems. Everywhere has its own pros and cons. And I feel like being in America, in a sense, it's kind of the front line culturally, because so much of global culture is downstream of American culture, good, bad, or ugly. I'm not endorsing that fact. It just seems to be the fact of the state of the world. So I don't know. I'm in the U.S. My wife moved to the U.S. from Germany. I am not going to be moving anytime soon. And as we talked about before, from an Orthodox perspective, patriot comes from the paternity, right? The patriarchal lineage. It's the land of your father. And so to be a patriot, I think every Orthodox Christian is called to be a patriot. You need to figure out where the land of your father is and then uphold and defend that. And so for me, the battle is here. It's a different context than Europe. It has different struggles than Europe. But I look at it as everywhere is going to have a challenge. Which one am I going to choose? This through providence and my fate in God's eyes. This is where I'm supposed to be. So I think you guys will have to pray about it and make some serious decisions. That's a tough decision regards to moving the family after you've already moved them out of the country. So God bless you, Candace, and the family. Zohar Khan throws in 10, says banger stream. Well, thank you so much, Zohar. Really appreciate it. One shot A17 throws in 20. Thank you very much for the super chat. He says, the first time I went to divine liturgy, I had extremely inappropriate nightmares and some dreams about things watching me in my townhouse. I also had my pet's toy fly down my stairs one night and almost hit me in the head. One shot. I fully believe you. I absolutely believe you. Weird dreams are very common. Weird mental images are very common. If you struggle with something in particular, it's very common that that's going to emerge itself and almost try to grab you more intensely than it had you before. So I'm not surprised, brother, but keep going, because by keep going, praying, and being part of the church, you'll realize that ultimately all they can do is try to scare you, and they really don't have power. They do not have power without your free will. As we talked earlier from the quote, let me see if I can find the quote real quick exactly. It's from St. John Chrysostom. The quote is, the devil is like a dog chained. He can bark and threaten, but he cannot bite unless you got too close. So just remember that they have no power over you. as long as you're willfully moving in the opposite direction, their dominion, their power, their influence will cease to some degree. It's not that the spiritual warfare stops, but just keep doing what you're doing, brother, and just move in the opposite direction. Glitchy Rhythm throws in 10 and says, alcoholism hit me hard when my priest brought up baptism. I don't know why, but I spiraled out of control and second guessed years of information in an instant. The temptation is real, overcome. Glitchy Rhythm, I'm so glad you said this, because that's exactly what I was referring to and what I'm talking about is, okay, Glitchy Rhythm, we all are struggling with different things. You struggle with alcoholism, okay? Soon as baptism was brought up, as soon as the exorcism that everybody goes through when they're baptized in the Orthodox Church, what happens? The possession that the demons have, which is a small little sliver of your life. Remember, we were highlighting today, possession is a spectrum. Full-blown possession, like Edward in the movie Nefarious that we lost, that takes a long trajectory and a lot of action in which you agree with the demons to actually occur. But what happens is through our sins and our temptations, the demons kind of possess certain dimensions of ourselves. Alcoholism being one of them, drug addiction, porn addiction, sex addiction, all these things. And so absolutely, once you start being brought into the church, next thing you know is things that you struggled with begin to ramp up. Absolutely expected. Thank you so much, Glitchy Rhythm, for mentioning that, because I think that's useful for people watching. And it also, it clarifies the things that you struggle with, and it clarifies the areas in which the demons have a hold on you in some way or another. The Farney throws in 5, says, have you read Thinking Orthodox? If so, what are your thoughts? I look forward of the book to be troubling. I find the forward of the book to be troubling. Thinking Orthodox. I am blanking exactly right now on which book that is. Is that by Jeannie Constantu? Is that by the woman? I'm blanking on which book exactly is Thinking. Is that by the woman that I'm talking about? She wears the pectoral cross. I think she has a PhD. Somebody in the chat, let me know. I think that's the woman I think that's the book you're referring to. I don't know if I read the foreword, to be honest. Yes. Okay. Yeah. By that woman. Okay. I've only skimmed through sections of it. I didn't end up citing it. I actually looked through it for actually writing my book. I didn't quote anything from it. It was okay. I don't remember reading the foreword or anything. I skipped through, try to find sections that I'd find useful for my research. It was okay. But yeah, I'll have to get back to you on the Farney. I'll have to get back to you on the forward. I didn't read it. I don't remember what you're referring to. Christopher Scott throws in 5. Thank you so much, Christopher. God bless you, brother, for the support. Really appreciate it. And then over on Dono Chat, show me the money. Okay, I think somebody's trolling me. So I don't think there was a Hebrew black Hebrew Israelite last one. Okay, I think somebody's trolling. So show me the money throws in 5, says, yo, mama's so fat she outweighs the needs of the many. Wow. Well, thank you for that. Show me the money. And then over on Streamlabs, Ken Fresno throws in 5, and he says, which Orthodox church do I join? Greek Orthodox is for ecumenism. Rocor is against it, but I don't know about the others. Ken Fresno, I mean, I always tell people when they start asking about which church to join, it's a parish by parish thing. You got to find a good priest, right? The number one thing, Ken, is to find a really good priest. From there, yeah, there's differences in the jurisdictions because America is a unique circumstance. If you're in Serbia, you'd go to the Serbian Orthodox Church. If you're in Russia, you go to the Russian Orthodox Church. In America, we have all the different Orthodox jurisdictions. I'm Antiochian, Josiah Trenum's Antiochian. I think Father Paul Trubenbach, who we watched, is Antiochian. And so I like the Antiochian Archdiocese. Metropolitan Saba is from Lebanon. He's very based on some of the issues in the Levant, if you know what I'm talking about, regarding Israel. And so is our patriarch John. His brother was killed by the IDF. So, and Antioch is the place where people are first called Christians in the book of Acts. So you have that. I think, you know, I've gone to Greek parishes. Yes, the Greek jurisdiction has some ecumenism. It has, I'm not the biggest fan of Patriarch Bartholomew and that type of stuff, but that doesn't nullify the legitimacy of the church or the sacraments, because we're not Catholics. We're not papists. We don't believe in infallible humans. So we've never believed that bishops or clergy are infallible in that sense. I would recommend finding the church, just going to the churches that are closest to you, Ken. So go to the churches that are closest to you, meet with the priest, and, you know, talk about your life, talk about your circumstances, and see which one you feel like you resonate with and would be a good spiritual father. If it's Greek, it's Greek. If it's OCA, it's OCA. I mean, generally speaking, and I don't want to say this to prevent you from going to any one jurisdiction, because I said it's a parish by parish thing. The Greek, the GoArch, and the OCA were the two jurisdictions that supported Black Lives Matters during 2020. ROCOR condemned it. And then the Serbs, the Romanians, great. The Antiochians, I like the Antiochian church. I think it's very accommodating to Americans because everything's in English. So you do with that what you will. I know priests in every jurisdiction, and I know actually some of the most base priests are Greek. So it's not, you know, don't get so caught up on the jurisdiction thing. Just find a good spiritual father and then submit. So that'd be my recommendation, Ken. And so with that, I think that covers all the super chats. I want to thank you guys so much for the support today. I hope this stream was edifying. Wasn't expecting to go 3 hours and 50 minutes, but you know how I am. Don't seem to be able to stop. I used to do 1.5 to 2 hour streams regularly. Now I can't seem to stop before 3 hours. It's a problem. Okay. Franklin says our parish is 50% Arabic, 50% English. There's an Arabic church. So we're the sister church of St. George in Indianapolis. They had a large Arab community, but a lot of them are gone now. So even St. George is mostly in English. Ours is basically a 90% convert parish. And so it's almost all Americans and it's all in English. I've been to Father Josiah Trenum's church, St. Andrew's in Riverside before. Very, very beautiful. So it's a parish by parish thing, Ken. Find a good spiritual father and, you know, just submit to the authority and, you know, go on the journey, man. Go on the journey. If something major happens in the future, yeah, you know, you could always go to a different church or a different parish, but just find the spiritual father. That's all you got to do. Everything else will fall into place. So anyways, guys, thank you all so much. God bless you all. Stay strong. Realize that we are in the midst of spiritual warfare. And also, guys, expect it to get worse. Not in a sense of despair or a sense of fear, but in a sense of preparedness. And if anything, a catalyst for the intensification of your faith and trying to make sure that you do what's right. And then, you know, we're all in it together. That's what it means to be part of the body of Christ, is we suffer together. So suffering is going to come. Just make sure you're doing it with Christ. I will see you guys in the next one. As always, until then, God bless.